On the right there where Mr. Brown is holding his hand up. So I'd ask that you please fill out one of those so we can call on you to speak. We will be handling the Ginny Girl case first, and we will be handling Internet Cafe second, and we will be handling the final review of the final draft for the Putnam County Comprehensive Plan 2020-2035 third. It's going to be a long night. It is 4:01. I will call the meeting to order. We are the Putnam County Planning Commission. We are designated the local planning agency for the county as described under Title 11, Chapter 163 of the Florida statutes. We function under the authority of Articles 11 and 12 of the Putnam County Development Code. Members of this committee will review each application and make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners at a regularly scheduled meeting. One will be on February 9th and one will be on February 23rd, and I will designate those when we call those cases. Procedurally, we will call each case by name and number. A member of staff will then briefly explain to us the nature of each request. We will take comments from the applicant or their representative, followed by any public comments concerning the request. Please direct all comments to the commission and not to other members of the audience. Before speaking, we will ask each person to come forward to be recognized and give us their name and their address. After all persons wishing to speak have been heard, we will entertain a motion from the commission. The motion will be voted on by the commissioners and become the recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. The Board of County Commissioners will always make the final determination in these cases. Would ask Mr. DeSantis if he would read our little code of ethics here.
As a member of the Putnam County Planning Commission, I pledge to come to meetings prepared for the items on the agenda, willing and ready to listen carefully and courteously to make information decisions based on the facts presented and what I feel is the best interest of the people and business of Putnam County. I will refrain from unnecessary interruptions, and I will be appreciative of and respectful towards applicants, members, and staff, and other members of the commission. I will support the decision made by the majority, and I will be fair and objective in all that I do as a member of this Putnam County Planning Commission.
Thank you, Tom. Before we start, and we'll do that in just a moment, I do want to acknowledge something that has occurred, and I want to say a great big thank you to someone, and I want to do it where everybody's here. Mike Brown has accepted a position in the zoning department for Clay County government and will be leaving Putnam County. During the time Mike has been here, he has been instrumental in many, many cases. Some difficult times, some fun times, and he has helped to move this county forward in ways that we cannot replace easily. And I want to thank Mike for all he's done. I've worked with him closely the past few years. I've grown to respect him. I've grown to welcome his input and counsel. And I know that each one of us shares our own gratitude to Mike for all that he's done for Putnam County. Thank you, Mike. With that, I will ask our attorney to handle the election of officers for the year 2021.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Board members, we will now elect a new chairperson and vice chairperson for the 2021 year. Nominations for chairperson are now open. Do I hear any nominations?
I nominate Susan Roberts.
And I'll second.
We have a nomination of Ms. Roberts and a second. Do I hear any further nominations? No further nominations are coming. Nominations are now closed. Since there are no other candidates, Ms. Roberts, you will continue as our chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you for your trust, and I expect your support, and I know I'll have God's grace doing this, so thank you.
Board members will now elect a new vice chairperson. Do I hear nominations for the vice chair?
I'd like to nominate Aaron Fortner.
Second.
Any further nominations? All right, nomination been made and second. Seeing no other nominations, the nominations are now closed. Mr. Fortner, since there are no other candidates, you will stay on as our vice chairman. Congratulations. And Madam Chairperson, that will conclude our elections.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. I appreciate your time with that. At this point, it's time to turn the meeting over to Jim Troiano, who will now present our first case, which is SM 20-001.
Well, Madam Chair, thank you very much. Jim Troiano from Putnam County Planning and Development Services. I would start, but my computer says now I'm restarting for whatever reason. So if you'll just give me 1 second, hopefully this won't be but a momentary little glitch, and we'll get started. I apologize. I hope not.
In the interim, let me announce one more time, those people who wish to speak either for or against one of our cases today needs to fill out a green card. They're located on the platform, on the area right behind Mrs. Brown, and we need to have this before you speak. So if you want to speak, please make sure to fill out a speaker's card. And please note on it which case you're coming forward to speak about. I have 2 cards, and neither one of them say what case you're going to speak about. I know one of them, but I will just wait. Okay, well, just give me a description of what it is.
Yes. Two in the
So
planning.
far, only 2.
Yeah.
No, I
Oh,
mean,
2 speakers, yeah.
2 cases then.
Yes.
Well, we have 2 cases plus the comp plan.
Yeah, he could be the company. I never thought of that. That's why.
Bear with us while Jim's computer is rebooting. I will say this, it's good to see citizens of Putnam County taking the time out of their day to come up and to speak before the commissioner, to be here. Might be because I turned it off. I would like to thank each of you who is here today for taking the time out of your day to be here. It's citizen participation that makes our job a whole lot easier, and it makes the work of the county so much better when we have input from members of the public. So I would like to thank you for being here. And do I see our county attorney sitting in the audience? Mr. Commando, glad you're here. You're welcome to come sit up front if you'd like. Okay. While Jim is getting his computer tuned up and ready to go, okay, I will tell you that this first case, we are only dealing with the rezoning of 2 small pieces of the land owned by this particular applicant. Pardon? Land use, I'm sorry, it's not zoning, it's the land use changes. We're going to deal with 2 moving from rural residential, 1 to Ag 1 and 1 to Ag 2. There will be no discussion and no action taken by this body on anything dealing with the distribution of biosolids on the site. That has to be handled by the Zoning Board of Adjustment with a request for a special use permit from the applicant. And we do not have anything to do with that. They will handle that totally and separately from this meeting. We are only dealing with the change in the land use designator to agriculture for the entire parcel, or the entire aggregate of parcels owned by the Jenny Girl plan. So, you
Madam
ready?
Chair, we're ready.
Okay.
I'm
go
just waiting for it to get projected on the screen. 1 second.
Technology
Here we
is
are.
wonderful. There you
It
are.
is. Madam Chair, may I proceed? Madam Chair, Commission members, again, Jim Troiano from Putnam County Planning and Development Services. The first case that we hear today is case number SM 20-001. This is a future land use for small-scale map amendment. Please follow along on the screen with us. Our applicant is Jenny Girl LLC, and the authorized agent is Cobb Cole Attorneys at Law, and the representatives here in our audience with us. The request the applicant is making is for a small-scale future land use map amendment from rural residential to agriculture 1 on approximately 20 acres in the northwest portion of the parcel, and for approximately 0.2 or 0.02 acres from rural residential to agriculture 2 in the southwest corner of the same parcel. And I'll show you a map of the future land use. The parcel identification number is 10-12-27 0000-0080-0000. Its location is 373 Old Highway 17 in Crescent City, and its current land use, approximately 20.26 acres, is rural residential. Agriculture 1, the lion's share of the zoning there, is 272.41 acres, and approximately half an acre at 0.57 in agriculture 2. And the local zoning is agriculture. A little background for you. The purpose of the requested future land use amendment is to bring the entire parcel consistent with the allowable uses and density of the agricultural future land use for this purpose of using the property for agricultural intensive activities. The parcel is located in an area of the county that contains rural residential, agriculture 1, and agriculture 2 future land uses. The area is developed with a mix of agriculture and residential uses, as you'll see on the map in a few minutes. According to County GIS, our mapping system, the parcel in question has both wetlands, FEMA flood zone hazard area A, and it also has direct access to Old Highway 17. It's important to note, as you mentioned earlier, that the applicant has requested a special use permit from the Putnam County Zoning Board of Adjustment to apply Class B biosolids to this parcel. This request is being tracked under SUP 20-10 and is scheduled to be heard, we believe, on March 17th, 2021. And again, that would be by the Zoning Board of Adjustment. So, Madam Chair, this is an aerial of the property, as you can see. A large rectangular section running north to south, and then majority of the property going to the east. What we're looking at would be to the northwest and to the southwest, and you'll see in a few slides coming. Looking at the actual future land use, the subject site itself, as mentioned, is Ag 1, Ag 2, and rural residential, and has a local zoning of agriculture. To the north, it is Agriculture 1 and rural residential for its future land use, and the zoning would be agricultural and residential 2. To the east of the subject site is from a future land use, Agriculture 1 and Agriculture 2, and the zoning would be, the local zoning would be agriculture. To the south, it is Agriculture 1 for future land use, and for the zoning is agriculture. And to the west, much like it is for the subject site, Agriculture 1, 2, and rural residential, and it does have a local zoning of agriculture. So this is your first zoning map that you're going to see in the property. It is all zoned agriculture, as it was presented to you in the graph that I just provided. Here's your future land use. And as you can see in the northwest corner, the rural residential does creep down into the parcel. Really, we understand to be no defined reason for that, other than when we did do our research, we found the rural residential part, which is not consistent with the intensive agricultural uses that the applicant is looking for. However, also in a very small portion in the southwest or to the left corner, you'll see a very small little sliver in the same golden color, and that's also rural residential that's surrounded by A2. And again, that's the request to change the northern part to Ag 1 to bring it consistent with the property, and changing that smaller piece in the southwest corner to Agriculture 2. From a wetland floodplain perspective, if you look to the bottom of the first leg that comes across from west to east, you'll see two fingers sticking up there. That represents a wetland in that area, and that's what I was referencing to, not only from a FEMA floodplain, but also from wetlands in that area. So, Madam Chair, if I may, let me talk a little bit about the rural residential use. Approximately, again, 20.26 acres of the estimated 300-acre tract is rural residential. And according to policy A193A4A, titled Rural Residential, it states in part that the rural residential category on the future land use map consists of areas located adjacent to municipalities and areas designated urban service, urban reserve, and rural center, and areas interspersed within the active agricultural areas and areas around water bodies. In certain locations, the rural residential category provides a transition of land use, density, intensity between the rural areas designated Agriculture 1 and 2 and the municipalities and the areas designated urban service, urban reserve, and rural center. The types of land uses allowed in this future land use category and the guidelines and standards applicable to them are listed below. Specifically, I'm going to list item A, and it states limited agricultural uses are permitted and are subject to further regulation in the Land Development Code. New intensive agricultural uses are prohibited. Property currently zoned for agriculture is considered a holding zone and may be used for agricultural uses other than intensive agricultural uses. Rezoning to agricultural districts shall not be allowed without a future land use map amendment to an appropriate future land use designation. Agricultural activities must comply with the best management practices provided for in the policy and identical policy, which is E135N, part that limited agricultural uses are permitted and are subject to further regulation in the Land Development Code. New intensive agricultural uses are prohibited. And again, this is for rural residential. Adding to the lion's share, or the greatest part of the future land use, is approximately 272.41 acres of this parcel is Agriculture 1. And looking at policy A193A9, which is Agricultural 1, it states in part that the Ag 1 category on the future land use map consists of areas used for cropland, pasture, and other agricultural activities, vacant land, and residential parcels of land of some of which exceed the density allowed in this future land use category. It is intended that a large share of this land will remain in active agricultural production in the future. The types of land uses allowed in this future land use category and guidelines and the standards applicable to them are listed below. And again, I use and identify Section A. Agricultural uses are permitted. Intensive agricultural uses are permitted and shall be further regulated by the standards provided in the Land Development Code. Agricultural activities must comply with the best management practices as provided for in policy A149 and its identical policy as mentioned E135. So the last area, Madam Chair, is Agriculture 2, and there's approximately, again, 0.57 acres. According to policy A193A10, titled Agriculture 2, it states in part that the Ag 2 category on the future land use category consists of areas used for silviculture and rangeland and other agricultural uses, vacant lands and residential parcels of land, some of which exceed the density allowed in this future land use category. It is intended that a large share of this land will remain in active agricultural production in the future. And I'm going to identify Section A, again, for agricultural uses are permitted. Intensive agricultural uses are also permitted and shall be further regulated, much like I read in the last section agricultural activities must comply with the policies in A149 and its policy in E135. So, Madam Chair, as I look at the future proposed land use designation, again, we already understand that the applicant is looking at changing 20 acres to the northwest from rural residential to Ag 1, and again, for approximately, we estimate 0.02 acres from rural residential to Ag 2 in the southwest corner. As I've already stated, there are flood and wetlands that are on the property. However, I do want to add the soil content. According to the USDA's Natural Resource Conservation Service, the majority, 87.5% of the soil on this parcel is paolifine sand. The remainder of the sand is made up of Orsino, Pompano, and Placid fine sand. From infrastructure and concurrency, changing the future land use designation in this case does not bring with it any development. Rather, the need to change to A1 to be able to utilize intensive agricultural uses. The change to Ag 2 is to clean up the future land use in the southwest corner of the parcel. So in conclusion, for our staff analysis, again, we've looked at this request. The need to have the change to Ag 1 is for the applicant to be able to utilize approximately 100 acres for intensive agricultural purposes. The applicant cannot apply, again, as biosolids if that's what his wish is through the special use permit to that property. We are waiting on the actual number, the actual acreage to be provided by the applicant as to how many that they're actually going to apply on. And that, again, will be handled by the Zoning Board of Adjustment. So in conclusion and recommendation, staff does recommend to this board or to this commission approval of the request to amend the future land use map from rural residential to Ag 1 and from rural residential to Ag 2, as the proposed amendment is consistent with the adopted goals, objectives, and policies of the adopted current comprehensive plan and is compatible with the existing and planned development in the area. And Madam Chair, that concludes my presentation, and I'm prepared to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Troiano. Are there any questions of the board for Mr. Troiano at this time?
I have a question.
Okay. Please make sure your microphone's turned on.
Jim, since we're in the process of changing Ag 1 and Ag 2 into just plain Ag, is there anything that we will have to do, since we're going to do part in Ag 1 and part in Ag 2, when we make that change?
Well, if the change is consistent to where you eliminate the Ag 2 category, it would all then go into Ag 1, if I answer your question correctly, Madam Chair. I think that's what he's asking.
Right. This will not have any bearing on what we're doing with the comp plan. What we're doing with the comp plan will not become effective until it has been passed. It's been reviewed by the Board of County Commissioners, sent to the state for review, come back from the state clean, and then been adopted by the Board of County Commissioners. So that change with the Ag classifications is not going to affect this until that happens, and then everything that was Ag 2 automatically will become Ag 1.
We don't have to hear it again?
No, we will not have to hear this again at all.
Then I have no more questions.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions of Mr. Troiano? Hearing none from Mr. Troiano, is the owner applicant here, and would the owner applicant like to speak? Please come forward and state your name and address and proceed with your presentation.
Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Michael Schnapps-Tyler with the law firm of Cobb Cole, 149 South Ridgewood Avenue in Daytona Beach. On behalf of the applicant, Jenny Girl, I want to thank the staff for their assistance in getting us to this point in the application. Jim took a lot of the sales out of my presentation, so I'll try and keep my, my remarks brief. But primarily, the application that's before you all today is to address a split land use issue. We've got a fairly large parcel of property that has about 6% of it that has a land use that's not consistent with the rest of the property. As staff mentioned, we don't know why that happened, but from a planning and policy perspective, we think it's of good principle to have consistent land use across the property so that you have consistent zoning and uses and regulation of the properties at hand. I appreciate Madam Chair's comments about the special use permit application. We are working with staff and DEP on that application separately. We are cognizant of concerns and want to talk to folks that have some concerns about the application. I think when they hear a little bit about what this specific use is for this specific applicant, it's a little different from what you normally think about when you hear biosolids. So I will ask if anyone from the public does want to talk to us. We'll work with you, we'll talk with you. I'll hang around a little after and can provide my contact information.
Excuse me, we will not do anything publicly with the biosolids issue today, but you can certainly use the lobby.
Yeah, and just wanted to put that on the record that, you know, we want to work with whoever wants to talk to us. And so, again, happy to answer any questions that you all have. We appreciate your consideration of the request. And we do have the staff recommendation of approval, which we appreciate. And thank you for your time this afternoon.
Does anyone have any question for the applicant? Okay, hearing no questions then, is there anyone from the public? I believe, Mr. Dillard, you wanted to speak on this particular case? Okay. Pardon? Okay, the only two cases we're dealing today with, Billy, are this case with the Lake Como piece and the Internet Cafe. And then we're dealing, the Internet Cafe ordinance, and then we're dealing with the planning, the long-range plan, the comprehensive plan for the county. So you might want to get with Mr. Brown. Could you two talk and see what case it might be that you're looking at? Okay, Mike, you want to get with Mr. Dillard and see if you can straighten that out? So he doesn't have to sit through the next however many hours? You're welcome to. It's going to be entertaining, Billy. They're always entertaining. We're riveting meetings. Okay. Is there anyone else from the public that wants to speak on this issue? I do not have another speaker's card. Robin Azam, you want to speak on the Internet Cafe issue? Okay.
No, not now.
Not now. Not now, ma'am. No, we're not ready for that. It'll be a while. So hearing no other comments from the public, we'll bring it back to the commission for discussion and for getting it on the table and for action.
No other conversation. I'd like to move that we accept the application as stated on SM 20-001.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll vote for it. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Anybody opposed? We have passed this from this stage. So stage one is through, Mr. I'm not going to try to say your last name. Schnapscadler or something like that. Thank you very much. All right, folks, we appreciate your having come today. Next up, we're going to deal with a proposed ordinance coming from the county board of, from the county planning staff as a request and a kind of a mandate to us from the county board of commissioners. And it deals with the establishment of an ordinance concerning internet cafes in Putnam County. We are going to hear presentations from staff. We want the staff to go through the complete presentation, and we're not going to ask questions intermediately. And I'd like for the board to hold their questions of staff until after we hear public comments, and then we will bring staff back for questions. We do have Kelly Mathis, and we do have Alex from the Sheriff's Office, who is the attorney for the Putnam County Sheriff's Office. We will bring them up and have them speak to us after Mr. Troiano has made his presentation. And I'm going to ask that you each try to contain your remarks to within 15 minutes. After that, we will hear from anyone in the audience wishing to speak about the ordinance that's being proposed. We'll bring it back to staff for comments and for staff, or bring it back to the board for comments and for any action the board wishes to take. So as Mr. Troiano is going through, we're going to let him go through completely, and then we will hear from our major stakeholders, and then we will bring it back to the board. Okay, Mr. Troiano.
Madam Chair, thank you very much. Again, Jim Troiano, Putnam County Planning and Development Services. Today, I'd like to present to you case CA 20-002. I'll be providing a very brief introduction, and then I'll be turning it over to Mr. John Salmons, our senior planner, who will be going over the staff report related to this. Also here today is our manager, obviously, Mike Brown. He'll be involved in this presentation if there's any questions. We've worked together as a team on this. So, Madam Chair, if I may, I'd like to just start and give you a little bit brief history of how we got to this point today. In August and October of 2017, our Board of County Commissioners listened to comment through workshops that they held, 2 different workshops. They took input from staff. They took it from stakeholders, the Sheriff's Office, concerning internet cafes. And Madam Chair, on November the 14th of that year, the board did establish a temporary moratorium for all new internet cafes in the unincorporated area of Putnam County for 365 days. That moratorium was extended again on November 13th, 2018 for another year, and extended again for a year on November 12th, 2019. On November the 10th, 2020, it was extended finally for 120 days with direction from the board to develop an ordinance. Now, Madam Chair, I can tell you that Planning and Development staff began working on an internet ordinance in mid-2020 at the direction of our county administrator and our planning manager. We did put together a draft, and we did work with our county attorney, Mr. Commando, as well as the Putnam County Sheriff's Office. On December 8th, during their regular workshop meeting, the board was presented a draft ordinance that we had come up with. And after receiving comments again from the staff, stakeholders, the sheriff, and members of the community, much like you said, Madam Chair, they did direct staff to bring a regulatory ordinance to the Planning Commission, one for a legally conforming internet cafe. Following the workshop, our staff worked with the Sheriff's Office, received input from stakeholders, and did draft this ordinance that you have in front of you. Now, I would like to say that the ordinance you have in front of you, the paper copy, is different than the one that was in your packet because we did make a change as of yesterday. So the staff report that Mr. Salmons will present today will be for the new draft ordinance. It's the one, Mr. Swain and members of the commission that you have. We'll also have it here on our screen if you need to see it. And Mr. Salmons has taken segments of it and used it in his staff report. So to move this process along, Madam Chair, I'd like to ask Mr. Salmons to come up and to bring his staff report to you.
Thank you, Jim. As with the last case, I believe his staff report will go on over the overhead screens.
All I do is find the mouse. There it is.
Can I ask John a question before he starts?
Let's wait. We'll wait till we do questions at the end.
I just want to know the changes
So
there.
go over that.
As stated, this is the Internet Cafe ordinance.
Mike?
Okay. This is the Internet Cafe ordinance. The request, as the Jim said, is for us to amend Articles 2 and 3 of the Land Development Code in order to create regulations intended to regulate where Internet cafes and/or game promotions are located and operated. The first part of the ordinance consists of a bunch of whereas, which most people don't pay much attention to. They do 3 things as a thing, and I'll just kind of briefly go through them without reading them all. The first one is set up the status as to the county has authority to protect the health, safety, and general welfare of the public and are able to draft ordinances to do that for land use issues. On this slide is the main change that we made yesterday. The Sheriff's Office asked us to install this clause in the whereas section, which basically says that the Sheriff's Office has advised the Board of County Commissioners that machines typically used in internet cafes can be manipulated either manually or remotely by the owner operators to remove any element of skill. These machines may be given citizens the belief that they can affect the game's outcome based upon their manipulation of gameplay through the machine interface. That is, in fact, is a fact. We're not intimating that any internet cafes are doing that, but that is possible. So the next sections basically go through conditions that we have found through experience by the Sheriff's Office and code enforcement staff and similar bodies from other counties and municipalities that are seen to be consistent with internet cafes. So it gives us a framework for how to put together an ordinance.
Excuse me, John.
Yes.
Could someone please close the back door? We're getting some bleed in from the conversations in the lobby. Thank you. Mr. Commando's got it.
And the
Go ahead,
last
Jim.
portion of the whereas clauses show that we're holding a public hearing before the Planning Commission, and we will at some time in the future before the Board of County Commissioners. And this basically just says what I just did, what I just told you. So, next portion of the proposed amendment to the Land Development Code merely adds internet cafes to the uses permitted by special use permit in the C4 and IL classifications. That is in the ordinance. I didn't put them in this staff report because there's like 3 pages long, and we're just putting a line in each of the districts they're allowed in. The next portion of the proposed ordinance allows for the internet cafes to be located in the C4 CIL, which I just said, as with an approval of special use permit. So that's where they're going to be. Definitions, I won't go through a lot of them. Most of them are straight out of the state law. We did add 2 definitions to the ones that are in the internet cafe state law. One is a substantial violation, which means criminal, life, safety, and general violation, or 3 violations of this code.
Which one is that, John?
Uh,
Okay,
Yep.
9?
We're on 10.
9.
I'm on 10 right now, so.
Gotcha.
And the other one is Mr. Mathis, the attorney that is here today, indicated that he felt that most of his clients were sweepstakes or game promotion, but that's what they do. So we put in the definition from 849.094 of the Florida statutes that defines game promotions and goes through the definition of that. The next portion is requirements for all internet cafes. Some of this I can't read, but I can tell you what it says. The first part is getting the names and owners of the operators. I'm going to get this out too because I still can't read it.
It would be on page 8 of 15 of our packet.
First, number 1 under D deals with the registration of the owner and operators, names, addresses, how we get a hold of them. Number 2 deals with annual registration of the fee that would be established by the schedule of fees for the different machines. It goes through putting a non-transferable decal on there. The decal doesn't mean that it's legal. It just means that the machine is recorded and it's on. We have a list of it, and then we ask for make and model, manufacturer's name, serial number, common name of the machine, and types and descriptions of the game. So basically, we're just making sure that the machines should operate under the state law. As we've mentioned in the past, it's fairly easy to manipulate the games. As the whereas clause said, it so that they can make it harder to win or easier to win. All the machines and devices shall meet the definitions of this section and be compliance with the Florida statutes in accordance with Florida State Statute 849-094. All game promotions required to file with DAX shall provide a copy of their DAX certificate to the Planning Development Services. This all goes in hand with registering the machines and stuff. Hours of operation. Be based upon the information that we found, that the data gathered from Putnam County Sheriff's Office clearly shows that criminal activity happens at internet cafes later in the evening and early in the morning. This is also what we found from a review of other counties and municipalities. So we felt that the limitation of hours of operation would help curb that type of negative activity. Our hours of operation that we've proposed is 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. Off-street parking. Parking has been an issue on several internet cafes here. Also is often mentioned in other municipalities and counties. So we've required a specific parking thing, and if parking becomes a problem, then they have to either add parking or limit the number of people they have in one time. Requirements continued. Windows and doors shall not be obstructed by tinting or signage and that kind of stuff. This condition will help law enforcement to control any potential criminal activity and make it safer for the patrons and of the business and the officers responding to a call. 7 deals with loitering and outside assembly. Long-term loitering turns into criminal activity often, and it has been an issue at internet cafes. This concept behind this is the same, is to protect customers from being assaulted and the officers, and it also gets them in to do their games and then leave. Minors shall be prohibited from entrance onto the premises of the internet cafe. Signs should be posted. This is not an activity that minors should be involved in. Internet cafes shall have licensed security guard on premise from an hour prior to opening to an hour after close. This basically is designed to try and keep a peaceful and safe environment for the patrons. Security guard, if we did get a call in the sheriff's office or code enforcement has to go out there, he or she would be the first point of contact if law enforcement does have to go out there. Signage deals with signs posted by all the gaming devices showing that it's not a game, it meets the state law, and it's not a game of chance. And no signs or exterior is allowed that represent symbols associated with gambling, including but not limited to dice, cards, poker chips, cherries, and jokers. This is designed to let the patrons know that this is not a gambling operation. We've been put lighting in. This state law requires the convenience stores to have the lighting that we've got here. We felt that it would be a good thing for internet cafes to have that also. And also Land Development Code has section 709. This lighting meets that. Number 12, fencing. Basically, if they have fencing, it needs to be open and able to see. This condition deals with, along with loitering, and is designed to keep from having criminal activity going on the site. It also creates more safety for patrons of the business and law enforcement if they have to go on there. Alcohol beverages are prohibited. Food and beverages, they may have snacks, soft drinks, water served on the premises. We feel that allowing snacks and that type of stuff is reasonable to do for these operations. The fire marshal shall establish maximum occupancy for the building, which he has to do by law. This just solidifies that. The premises shall be maintained in a clean, orderly fashion according to the accounts we've had, that's not always the case. So we just want to make sure that these places stay clean. Locational requirements, there were in the whereas sections, it was noted that there were certain uses that these could have an adverse effect on. These are listed here. Internet cafes, at least to 150 feet. That's that's a little bit less than a quarter mile. 500 feet from some of the other things is just a little over a quarter mile. It just gives the analysis on the closest property line, to the closest property line. Inspection, the county reserves the right to inspect the premises at any time during business hours to ensure conformance with applicable regulations. Inspections may be made by a law enforcement officer that has jurisdiction, code enforcement, or the fire marshal. So some of the internet cafes have had issues with kind of going over to where they were actually gambling, and so we want to make sure that they're abiding by the law. If a law enforcement that has jurisdiction, code enforcement, or fire marshal is required to respond to an internet cafe for a violation, the owner and manager of the internet cafe will be required to reimburse the cost to the proper authority. Failure to do that within 30 days may result in a code enforcement hearing. It takes time, material that the county has to go out to these things to deal with it, and we feel that they should pay the cost. That it should be a reasonable cost, not based upon facts, not on some amount they picked out of the air. And this goes through the violations part, internet cafes in violation of this order, or other more of the violation of this or other more significant violations 3 times in a 6-month period will be required to appear for a show cause hearing before the zoning board of adjustment to show why the special use permit shall not be revoked. Other minor issues may go to the special magistrate, and it tells how the notice of hearing would be done. Zoning board of adjustment has the authority to render a decision whether or not the owner or manager is present. All legal action will be issued towards the owner operator, not to, or the property owner. It will not be dealt with to the employees who are just there working and not in charge. Existing internet cafes must adhere to the professions that I just went through in the above. None of them are very costly. This does not include D17 as it relates to distance, or D5B, which deals with which deals with off-street parking. All existing internet cafes become legally non-conforming at the time of the adoption of this ordinance. If an existing legally non-conforming cafe ceases operation for 30 days, it shall lose its legally non-conforming status, and any future use of the property shall meet the requirements of this ordinance and the Land Development Code. Staff recommends an adoption, a recommendation for adoption to the Board of County Commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Salmon. And is there anybody else from staff who is going to be making a presentation this afternoon?
Don't think so.
Okay, what we would like to do now is I would like to ask the major stakeholders. And since this is originating from the Putnam County Commission as a mandate to the Planning Department to get this thing done, I'm going to ask the Sheriff's representative if he would come first. And I'm going to give you up to 15 minutes to speak. And then we will ask Mr. Mathis to come forth and speak on behalf of the internet cafes that he represents. So come forward, sir. Please state your name and address, and we shall proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. If I don't use all 15 minutes, can I reserve some of that for a rebuttal?
You can reserve some of that to answer questions that we may have. Yes, sir. This is not a Lincoln Douglas debate.
All right. Well, I think it's very clear the sheriff himself has been.
Name and address for record.
Alex Sharp, General Counsel for the Putnam County Sheriff's Office. Is that sufficient, ma'am?
Thank you.
I think the sheriff has already made it very clear his position on these internet cafes, which is kind of a misleading name for them. Back in my day, and some of you will remember, an internet cafe was You went in there, you checked your email. If you wanted to make some faxes or copies, that's what you did. These internet gaming facilities or simulated gambling facilities now are just that. They're gambling operations. And the sheriff's position on this is we would prefer that the commission ban them outright, as many other of our sister jurisdictions have already done. However, if it's the will of the commission and the planning board to go forward with this, we will endorse and work with the ordinance that is eventually passed. With that said, we have been working with staff on this, and as you know, as you read something, you kind of remember things that you'd want to add into, and they have been accommodating to us. But there are a few things that I would like to touch upon that just to let you know that we feel would, if you do pass this, again, we don't want you to, but we will endorse it if you do. There are a couple of things that we would like to bring to your attention. We did request that one of the provisions for a proprietor or owner when he's opening one of these businesses is to provide a owner's manual for the type of machine that they're going to use. That does two things. It tells us what actually the owner can do to adjust the machine, how the machine pays out, and it really tells you whether this is a arcade game like you used to play as a kid, or if it's just something designed to collect money and reimburse it. The other thing that we asked was for a country of origin where these machines are being manufactured. In our research and study of these machines, we found that most of them are being shipped in from overseas, China. We do work closely with Homeland Security, and if these machines are gambling devices and they are bringing them into the state of Florida, U.S., there are certain federal applicable statutes that apply to that. The other issue that we saw in here was it does require them to have security. We would suggest at the very minimum a Class G security guard licensed by the state of Florida. Some of you might already know this, but a Class G is an armed security guard. We base that on the fact that we've had multiple armed robberies at these establishments. I believe 3 or 4 within the beginning of this year. Yes. So an armed security guard at a minimum would be our recommendation. We also noted that there's no video security requirement in the ordinance. We'd ask that some kind of recording devices be put up to monitor inside and outside the perimeter. And that's about what we would like added. And again, we will support whatever you do going forward, but we really feel that these machines are a detriment to the county. They're predatory. People don't realize that they really have no way of winning money at these machines, and we just feel that it's not the type of business that we would want within our neighborhood and our communities. And you can even glean that from the ordinance that was just presented to you. No minors, limited hours, away from churches and schools. I mean, we are really isolating these types of businesses, and there's a reason for that. They're not really internet cafes. They're gambling halls. So that's it, Madam Chairman, and thank you very much for allowing me to get up and speak. Do you want questions now, or?
We'll wait, but you will remain on premises for questions should we have them?
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Mathis, I believe I got that right. Yes, sir. Please come forward, state your name and address, and we'll give you 15 minutes.
Thank you. I'll try not to use it as well. In respect of the Commission's time, good afternoon. My name is Kelly Mathis, 3577 Cardinal Point Drive. I represent, in Jacksonville, one of the existing game room operators, and that's really the better term to call them, game room operators, and then one that was in the process of operating a game room. And I do have to correct Mr. Sharp. Back in our day, the internet wasn't invented yet, so.
There's a pinball machine in the drugstore.
We had Pac-Man maybe, and that was it. So I think there's a lot of misunderstanding and confusion about these game rooms and what they are and what they do. And this is not an issue whether they're legal, whether they're illegal. That's all governed by state law. This is a question of taking something that is allowed by state law and determining what are the regulations that should be in place in having those present in Putnam County. So there's a little bit of difference there. They're defining the games, but they're basically game rooms that operate. And I apologize if I confused you, Madam Chair, with my meeting speaking card. I said I agree and disagree. I think regulation is the way to go. I think regulation is appropriate. My client does not oppose regulation. Those communities, and there are a number of them throughout Florida that have regulated these game rooms, have found that regulations do work and have worked to address the concerns. And we certainly understand the sheriff's concerns about safety and security. I think this addresses that. I think security is appropriate. My client has no objection to is a Class G license? Class G, armed security guard. That's what they use now. And they haven't been robbed. The ones that have been robbed had no security. So we recognize that that works and has worked and will work. We've got no objection to requiring an armed security guard to be present, at least during nighttime hours. I'm not sure if it's necessary during the day. I think we have them during the day too. But so there are parts of this that are certainly acceptable and workable. There are parts of it that I think are designed to put up hurdles to make it difficult for them to operate. I do understand that existing game rooms are treated different than as a non-conforming use than new game rooms. I think the zoning is problematic. Industrial and C4, which is intensive commercial, it's pretty intense zoning. Most of these places are in strip malls, and that's commonly where they are, which is general retail, commercial C1 zoning. The other problem is that even in industrial and C4 zoning as written into the ordinance, they're only allowed by special use, which is, again, more hurdles. And on top of that, there's nothing in this ordinance that defines what would qualify, what criteria that a future planning commission is going to look at to determine whether they're appropriate or not. So it creates just an absolute burden, obstacle, almost an impenetrable obstacle for new game rooms to be able to open. Again, there are a lot of places in this county where commercial strip malls, commercial is hurting and they're empty, and if the game rooms would be appropriate there, if you limit them to industrial and C4, especially with the setback requirements that's in this ordinance, there's just about no place they could exist. And maybe that's part of the reason, but it needs to be a little clearer where they can exist. There are a lot of buildings that are built that are C1 that are freestanding buildings that have plenty of parking and completely appropriate for the game rooms. Again, the setback, 1,250 feet from the property line to the property line, would make it very difficult to even find a location. In fact, I'm not sure that there are such locations in those zoning areas for game rooms. The hours of operation, the operator of the game room is going to address that, but right now they're scheduled to close at 9 o'clock. She'll show you a whole list of businesses that are open way past 9 o'clock. We think that's little too restrictive, and would like to see that addressed. But there's also some fundamental issues that I've discussed with the county attorney regarding the legal part of the ordinance itself. We frankly think it needs to be stepped back and redone as to what the definitions are for the game rooms and what's included. There is a provision in there for sweepstakes game promotions that was added after my conversation, but again, I think that may need to be revisited. So essentially, what those games are, just so you understand, is sweepstakes, the old Publishers Clearinghouse that you used to get in the mail, the old Coke thing that you used to pop. Well, it's entered the virtual age and the computer age too, and those are done electronically now. And so that's one of the issues for these game rooms. But there are, I think, appropriate regulations that could be put in place. I think those were the main ones that I wanted to address. I'll also be available for questions.
Thank you. Appreciate your time, appreciate your being here. And we'll probably call you back for questions.
Be happy to.
Thank you. Robin Azan, please come forward and state your name, your address, and then give us your comments.
Good afternoon.
You want to wait until she distributes
Yeah.
what you're giving us?
That's a list of businesses that are open past 9 o'clock
Oh, okay.
at night. Good afternoon. Ready?
Thank you. And your name and address?
My name is Robin Rukab Azam.
Okay, could you spell that for the record?
Rukab Azzam with a hyphen. My
Thank you.
address is 7039 Bakersfield Drive, Jacksonville, Florida. I'm associated with RW Cyber on Carter Road. First, I would like to invite you all there, because if you come there, I'll meet you there, and you will see what it is inside. Have any of you been inside an adult arcade? Do you know what they're like inside? Okay, they're clean. I'm speaking for me. Mine are clean. I have good clients, good customers, and we have a good time. Let me back up just 1 minute. I want to tell you my history. I have a bachelor's degree in literature and communications. I have a master's degree in public administration. I worked in City Hall in Jacksonville for about 20 years, so I know about ordinances and how they're written and how they can be changed. And also, my favorite two singers are Willie Nelson and Elvis Presley, so you know. This ordinance is really strict. You could just save the time and write out, close all arcades and submit that, because it's very tough. There's some things I agree with and some things I don't. But for example, in Jacksonville, I had one and they shut them down because one city councilwoman decided she wanted them closed. And now, you know what we got? We got about 150 underground locations that open at dark and close at sunlight with no security. And what are our Jacksonville police doing? Chasing those people. It makes more sense to me to regulate the business and have a strict regulation that they have to follow, register the names, register the computers, decide whether you want fish tables or not. They're games of skill. They're not games of chance. You are the operator. They have those in Dave & Buster's. So if they're so bad, why does Dave & Buster's have them? The place that I operate has guards, armed guards. I have 2 during the day and 3 at night, just to make sure that there's no issues. The ordinance closing at 9 o'clock is just not feasible, because some of the players come from Jacksonville, and it's a long ride. You know, if you leave your house at 7, then you have about an hour. And the guards are there till close, and everything is secured and safe before anyone walks out the building. I really want you to come see how I do things. Everything's above board. We run payroll, we pay payroll taxes, we buy from the local economy, we supply, have suppliers, we use Staples in all the businesses here. There's nothing to hide, and you have this idea of these places being so bad, but yet you've never been to one. I really would like for you to come visit, and we could arrange that. The owners in Jacksonville, when they have an ordinance still on the books where the game rooms were regulated, and they had one man that regulated them, and we paid in $5,000 or $10,000 a year to the city, and they used that to offset his salary. We would be willing to do that here, where this person could come out and look at your stickers and make sure you're operating right, make sure your place is clean, and things are being done by the book. Where there's a will, there's a way to keep these places open. And the sad thing is if you go down to the villages downstate, I've been there at 10 o'clock in the morning, it's full of blue hairs. People don't want to stare at four walls all day. This is a place to get out and have a little fun. And in Jacksonville, all these people are going to these underground places. And it's really scary because there's no security, no regulation, no anything. I'm for regulation. I think you should stop any more from opening up. And I think you should regulate the ones that are here and tell them this is what you have to do to stay open.
Can you start wrapping up? Or give
Oh,
us
okay.
a few more?
I'm losing my time. Okay. Well, all I will say to you is this. If you pass this ordinance as written today, as submitted, you are failing your constituents. Your citizens are not going to be happy. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay. At this time, I would like to, do you have something to say? No, you're just moving, okay. At this time, I'd like to bring it back to the commission for questions of staff, questions of the two attorneys, questions of Mrs. Alm. So this is the time we're going to ask questions. You can ask questions of him.
No, you wanted to know who I talked to.
Okay, we need to declare that. I'm sorry, we do need to ask board members to declare any ex parte communications they might have had with any of the stakeholders or anyone concerning this particular ordinance. Mr. Schwing, I see you have some.
I have spoken to Mr. Kelly Mathis.
You need to use your microphone. Please face the desk and be a big boy.
I have talked with Kelly Mathis on this subject.
Did you initiate the call or did he?
I called him first and he returned my call.
Okay.
I talked with an individual that has not spoken but is present. His name is Wanson, F-E-N-T-E, and I believe he owns internet cafes, but I'm not positive about that.
And can you give us any of the nature of those conversations?
He was concerned what we were going to be doing today.
Okay. And the conversation with Mr. Mathis?
My initial conversation, I knew he was the attorney that was going to be coming, and my understanding, I was told that he had been to a meeting that I was not present to, and I wanted to know what.
This is the first time this board has taken up internet cafes.
I believe it may have been a workshop meeting or something.
I believe there was a county commission meeting, Board of County Commissioner meeting that you spoke with, and that is archived on YouTube, so you could watch that anytime.
I tried that, and that didn't work with me.
Well, that's the way to get past, anything the Board of County Commissioners. I watched Tuesday's meeting until 2 o'clock this morning, so, I watch them every 2 weeks. Anybody else have any ex parte communication with anyone concerning this? Okay. Questions that you may have of staff. Let's start with that. Questions, concerns about the ordinance as it's written, things that you would like to see the ordinance include that are not there, things that you would like to discuss about things that aren't there and maybe adding, also things that are there that you would like to discuss, maybe remove, general comments, anything like that to go to staff, and we can start at the very beginning.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Before you continue, I'd just like to ask Mr. Swing, was there anything that you heard or received during this communication which you believe renders you unable to consider this issue in a fair and impartial manner and fulfill your duties as a member of this commission?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Let's go with staff first. Mr. Salmon's up to the podium. Questions, concerns, comments that you have of staff? And if you would, please reference a particular area of the ordinance, your page number, and what you would like to talk about.
John, I'll go first. Page 1, and this was brought up, I think, probably by Mr. Mathis. The C4 and industrial zoning requirement. Why did we come up with C4 and industrial for an internet cafe?
That was a discussion we had at staff, and that's what we put in. It can be changed easily. It's just,
What was the justification for using those two categories for zoning?
basically to keep them in places where they aren't close to neighborhoods, which was a problem in the past. In those districts, it's more non-residential type businesses in there, and they would have less impact on them.
Okay,
Churches and schools.
right.
Aren't as
Daycare
close.
centers and things of that nature, okay.
I
Pardon?
have a,
I'm sorry, we couldn't hear you.
What? Sporting facilities, soccer
Okay.
fields, all that stuff.
Where children
Yep,
play
where
and
children
gather,
are.
okay. Okay. Anything else on that, Mr. Schwing?
well, it concerns me that we would put such restrictions and then double it down with a special use. I mean, the ones that we currently have in the county, I think we've got 3, maybe 6.
That's one of my questions. This zoning requirement would not affect any current operations, is that correct?
Correct.
It would only affect them if they cease to operate for 30 days.
Correct.
At that point, they would be required to meet the full requirements of this ordinance. But if they are in existence, they are not required to meet the C4 or the IL. Would you explain the thought behind the light industrial?
It was just industrial district. We don't expect that this ordinance is going to pass like it is. We began gathering data and doing stuff, and we were told to draft an ordinance. So we drafted an ordinance knowing full well that through public input, it was going to change. So we talked today about the fact that all the conditions that are in the ordinance are the things that the special use permit people would be looking at. So there probably isn't really a need to be a special use permit.
You're considering dropping the special use permit, is that what you said?
No, he's
It's
not
up to
saying.
you guys and the Board
We
of County
could.
Commissioners to make those decisions.
Okay, but I mean, with your conversation today, is that,
we talk about it all the time.
Well, I think what he's saying is that many of the regulations and requirements that are being built into this ordinance would be things that would also be in an SUP.
Right.
And if we tighten up these regulations so much that it may be the county commission decides not to require an SUP. But right now, that's what it is. But right now, what was required when the existing establishments were put into operation?
Essentially nothing. Application.
Just a business application?
What zoning?
Well, we don't do BTRs in this county, so we don't even do that, so. It's business tax receipt. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Right.
John, I have a question. What zoning or, if you know offhand, are most of them in right now? In the strip malls, what are those zonings going to be?
Those are probably C2.
Right.
Right, I think, yeah, I understand that.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I have a question basically for law enforcement.
Can we wait on that?
Okay.
Let's finish with staff first. Let's finish going through the ordinance first on staff review. I have a question on page 4, and this is probably something that's coming directly from statute. But arcade amusement center means a place of business having at least 25 games or machines.
No, ma'am, I think that's changed. So are you looking at the new one?
No, I'm sorry, I'm not. I'm looking at the old one in my notebook where my notes are.
Madam Chair, I'd ask you to look at the revised one that we provided everyone today and use that one, please. And you'll see that's 50. That was a change presented to us by the sheriff's office. And we changed that to 50.
Actually, I'm still reading the same thing.
On page 5, I have,
I'm
it's
on page
50.
4.
I don't even have pages on it.
Well, no, I
They
just
don't have
numbered
page
mine.
numbers on them.
I'm looking at our notebook on page 4, where it says an amusement center means a place of business having at least 50 machines.
That's correct. That's the change. That's accurate.
All right.
Where is
let me-
that one at?
It's on page 4. Item 2.
Mine says 25.
That's 25. Now, right here, Jim.
That says 25, what they gave
Yep,
me.
25 games. At least 25. What happens if somebody opens up an establishment with 24?
Madam Chair, if you'll give me a second, you've received the wrong copy of that.
Exactly.
Okay.
So give me a second, I'll go make some copies for you. So
Certainly.
you'll have the most accurate copy. I apologize for it.
They wouldn't be classified as an amusement game or machine, and
But-
they would be a different classification.
Well, if they are the same animal, but they're smaller,
Right.
and they only have 15 machines, would they not be subject to the same ordinance?
They would, but they wouldn't be
It's a different class.
Be a different
type.
classification, okay. All right,
Type A, B, and C, they would probably be a B instead of an A.
okay. All right. Any other questions going on with staff?
I have many questions.
Okay, well, let's
But
move
I
on.
was going to try to do it page by page, but I can jump skipping around if you
Well,
want.
is there something general other than something specific that while Jim is making our copies, we can talk about in general? Is there something in general you would like to discuss?
Well, one thing that I was reading, this is in my big notebook.
Right?
It references the planning commission having a hearing. Is that today's
That's
hearing?
it. Today is the
Right,
hearing,
that's
yes.
today's-
And the county commission, that's sometime in the future?
Time in the future.
Okay.
Yes. And
That an-
actually, I have a date for that.
That answers that question.
This is going to be fast-tracked, and it will go to the county commission. We wrote that down, Nancy. February the 9th, it will go to the county commission. Assuming we pass something out of this meeting today, it will go to the county commission on February the 9th.
Correct.
If we table it, it's after we pick it up and continue. Anything else specific, or not really specific to terminology in the ordinance?
Well, page 5 of the big notebook.
Let's hold off on anything that's
Okay.
specific. Anything general,
Well, that's general. I mean,
okay, but
it says merchandise. I guess this is,
means non-cash prizes maintained on the premises by the operator, including toys and novelties. It does not include cash, cash equivalent, gift cards, alcoholic beverage, tobacco product, card, coupon, point, slug, et cetera, coupon or point, and any prize or other item if the exchange or conversion to cash or cash equivalent is facilitated or permitted by the owner or operator of the game or machine.
What does state law say on that?
This is what the state law says, except it doesn't have cash.
So we,
Because it says non-cash in the first part, but I put it in there because we just wanted to make sure
Well,
that it was clear that cash wasn't.
the internet cafes, game rooms, whatever we want to call them, okay? Every one that I've seen, they're always, they don't give you a teddy bear or some kind of trinket, non-cash thing. It's always cash.
Well, I
that's-
think
Are
this ordinance
those-
is taking the cash out.
I
Mr.
believe
Frank.
that is what the sheriff's office has been saying.
Well,
And one of the
If-
things
if-
this ordinance is doing is taking that cash distribution out.
but, so we're writing it
Violation.
more strict than what the state law
No, the
says.
state law doesn't allow cash.
State law doesn't allow cash.
No, that's why it becomes gambling, and that's what the whole issue's been.
That should be a simple resolution then. We just don't have them. I mean, if their only method of doing it is the way that they're doing it, but
Oh,
they
we-
seem to be legal. I mean, this might be go to Alex or the gentleman beside you. The ones that we have currently,
Yes, Alex, would you please come up and address that?
the ones that we have currently
Ken,
out.
just let him talk.
I understand what you're saying, Ken. Yes, during our course of investigations, arrests, and other times that we've had to be called to these places, the majority of them, and I'm going to refrain from Mr. Mathis's client because I haven't been in her establishment, but the establishments that I've reviewed and been inside personally, they have these machines called fish games. And it sits 6 or 8 people. It's a tabletop game, and they insert cash into it, and you shoot fish or whatever colorful animal is in there, and you gain points. And by gaining these points, you get credits. They call them credits, and they either print you a little receipt out or some way of keeping tabs of what you're doing, and then you could go back up to the counter, and if you have extra credits, they give you cash in lieu of those credits back. So it's just a circumnavigation of the gambling law. And we've made arrests on those that very such thing. And that is the reason that they are so popular at this point. The Chuck E. Cheese is what you're thinking of, or the Dave and Buster's, where they do the coupons. That is a carve-out in the statute for those places to run the arcades. And if you bring your child, or it's the Dave and Buster's, which is the adult, you can win a teddy bear, the eraser, you have 2 million points, you can get the disco ball or whatever it is.
Well, my question would be specific in the fact that you say you get credits and you have extra credits. I don't understand how you get extra, but just say you got extra credits and you're the person at the place and you're going to give me cash for my extra credits.
That's correct.
And that's illegal.
Let me give you if I may, madam, let me give you a quick analogy of the fish games. 4 or 5 people sit around the table.
I'm familiar with the fish game.
Everybody
All right, let
puts
him
their
talk.
money in. The machine can be calibrated to pay out a certain percentage. You can, and I'm going to very simplify this. If you can set the machine basically for every $200 that it takes in, it can dish back out $50, $60, or even $10. The owner has the ability to set it to what he wants, and somebody around that table, they'll probably walk away with a little bit of cash. But the other 5 or 7 people sitting around there, they're going to lose their money. And there's no skill involved in it. You just sit there and you tap a button and you play with the toggle switch. Those are called the fish games. Those are predominantly what the sheriff's office has found in all the internet cafes around the county. Those are the ones that make the money.
Are those the most problematic?
They are, ma'am. Well, for one, they're a violation of Florida statute.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what I'm asking. That's illegal then?
Yes, it is.
No question about that.
Well, we've made arrests on it, and we've shut businesses down and seized machines and destroyed them. Yes, sir.
Did we get convictions on arrest?
Well, we don't do that part. We make the arrest.
Well, but following it through to the,
Well, a lot of the times, the state attorney's office, and I can't speak for them, they'll do what they call plea deals, pretrial intervention. A lot of these people are business people that are running these. A lot of the owners can be out of state. They're hard to reach and hard to verify who actually has the purse strings for the money. So yes, sometimes at some point, the state attorney's office will strike a deal.
Sometimes,
Yes.
but we have convictions.
I would have to refer back to the state attorney's office. Now, we did do an operation several months ago where we went into several of the establishments and observed them doing the cash back, and we made the arrest. We had already spoke with the state attorney's office, and basically, we gave the state attorney our blessing. They can still do what they want to dispose of the cases as they saw fit. And at that time, they disposed of them as arrest sufficient because we were arresting the employees.
I don't understand that, but that's,
Well, it was an effort to slow down the onslaught of the games. They were becoming prevalent again, and it was decided that we would go in and attempt to do some kind of law enforcement action on them in light of the multiple armed robberies that we were having as well.
Yeah.
okay.
All right. Jim has come back with our revised ordinance, and please stay available, Alex.
I'm right here.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Oh, they're nice and warm off the press.
Question for John.
Okay, Aaron has a question of John.
I'm going to take this off so you can hear me. Besides the sheriff office, right now, who from the county, just our single code enforcement officer would be the one trying to enforce this?
Our code enforcement officer have been involved in this, yes.
Say that again, please, John.
Our code enforcement officers have also been available, but it's mainly the sheriff's office that does the heavy lifting.
And I'm correct that this is non-incorporated Putnam County, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. You want to talk us through the changes that we see in this ordinance? I know we're looking at the categories in C4. And we do have special use permits for very innocuous things, like hospitals, communication towers. So this is just adding internet cafes to C4.
What a special permit, use permit is, it means that the use is generally conducive to what else is allowed in there by right, but it can have characteristics which can cause issues, and that's what the special use permit's for.
Okay.
Sometimes it's a noise issue, sometimes it's traffic. That's the kind of things that they look at. And when we review a special use permit, that's the kind of things we look at. See what kind of impact, if there's anything that could adversely impact the surrounding area.
Okay. Other questions for Mr. Salmon? Candy, do you have other questions for staff?
Yes, I think I do. I have a rather large problem with, since I own a lot of property and other people.
You do? I didn't know that.
And several other people own lots of property. And we lease to Alex, and he opens up an internet cafe, that you might want to come back and give a fine to me for his illegal activities, giving that cash away. When I have nothing except I'm leasing. Why do we have property owner?
Where's that cited? Please give us the citation.
One of the places,
It's in the registration,
Right, the registration.
and also the violation portion. Sometimes the owners of the internet cafe are not in state, and you're responsible for your property. And if we go to the special magistrate, he's going to put a lien on your property. So
Right.
you have to make sure that your internet cafe is operating under the code.
that would be a notice aspect, but not a fine.
It could be.
It could be, once
It
you,
could be a lien
if it
against your
doesn't stop.
property.
So in essence, what we want to do is we want to write an ordinance to stop we're going to call him a landlord, from leasing property.
No, you'll get a notice saying that it's in violation, and then you'll be given 30 days to deal with the violation. And in that time, you can talk to the internet cafe person. If we can get a hold of him, that's who we want anyways. But, I mean, you're.
Property owner is ultimately responsible for his
Yep,
property.
absolutely.
I see this as a method of not restricting me to lease to whoever I want to lease to, trying to
No.
put a, no? To
I'll
put a
answer
pen-
that.
To put a penalty against,
What you're doing is if you lease property to anybody, you want to make sure that their operation is legal. Because if they have an illegal operation on property that you own, and action is taken against those people, and that property is involved, you can have a lien against your property. You're given a 30-day notice from codes enforcement to remedy the problem, or you can be called before the special magistrate, and you start amassing massive fines.
I deal with those people quite regular. But that's not the
All right.
problem. The problem I see,
Jim, would you please?
Oh, ma'am, I'll listen to his last question. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
what's the problem you see, Ken?
the problem is coming back against the property owner. Whether it's an internet, I mean, in this ordinance, we're writing it for internet cafes. I see it as a restriction to try to get us not to rent to an internet cafe, even though an internet cafe may pay me, we'll just make these numbers up, $5,000 for a location, and Tom wants to pay me $3,000 for a location to do some other kind of business.
Well, they're paying you to allow them to do illegal activity, it sounds like.
Well, if it's an illegal activity, why are we even messing with this?
That's what I was just about to
That's
say.
why we're messing with it, that's why it's in here, that the owner will
No, the
have
whole-
responsibility for what goes on his or her property.
The whole ordinance. If it's an illegal activity, if it's not illegal, we don't need it.
It doesn't have to be an illegal activity. We're trying to give parameters within which an internet cafe can operate legally in Putnam County. Now, what may be going on right now might not be totally legal, and there may have to be some changes made. What goes on in the future, what we want to regulate and make sure that it is as legal as it can possibly be. We're writing restrictions in to keep a problem from occurring so that the owner or the operator knows in advance that these are what the requirements are. And if you step outside of these requirements, you're going to see Mr. Sharp's buddies.
Well,
They're not going to come in there and say, hi, how you doing?
this ordinance as written, I don't think we're gonna have that problem because I don't believe that anybody can qualify for an internet cafe. I mean, with the zoning restrictions you got, the special use permits you got, going against people they gotta rent from somebody unless they just happen to own the property.
Well, we don't know that. We don't have a crystal ball.
We don't know that?
We don't know that nobody's going to come in and put an internet cafe under these restrictions. We don't know that.
If there's no place to put them that meets your requirements, we do know that.
There are plenty of places to put them. Within the C4 zoning, within the IL zoning, there are
How many
plenty of
places
places.
do you have?
We've asked, Madam Chair, we've asked GIS to evaluate that for us. I don't have that document with me. I did not bring it, but I believe we have 50, Mike, I think 45, 50, 40 properties that are
We've got a
available.
good inventory
Yes,
of
ma'am.
available property. That's not going to be the issue. It may not be the exact location somebody wants,
But we do have an inventory.
but we
and
do
it is
have an
available.
inventory, and we do know that there are sites available. We also know that in good faith, our sheriff's office, in good faith, Mr. Mathis, have come together, and although they might not agree on everything, and they might not agree on changes we make to it, they've given us this ordinance as a combined effort. Am I correct in that? I'm looking at Mr. Mathis.
There's not much of my effort in here,
Okay,
candidly.
okay. But you have seen it, and you have told us your concerns about it. We've heard Mr. Sharp's concerns about it, and concerns you're representing Sheriff DeLoach. Let's look at specifics of the ordinance. Anything else, Mr. Schwing?
Well, I'm concerned with,
Tell us what page you're on in the book. in the
we're gonna go
notebook.
to 13. And this is where, John, you referenced the fines are the fees that they were gonna have to pay if code enforcement came, or if SO came, or
He's going to the old number 13.
Yeah, in the book,
in the big,
in the notebook.
I already threw that away because they were outdated.
oh, wait, I do have numbers
It's
on it
item
now.
20, yeah, it's item 21.
Yeah. An item, whatever item you're talking about.
I think he's talking about item 21, but I'm not sure.
Well,
Page 13.
the cost incurred, I think it's 19 in my great big book.
Okay,
It is 19.
okay, yeah. That's code enforcement.
Are we just singling out for this ordinance, the game rooms? Because I know when the SO comes on a call of somebody breaking in, or there's a fight at the bar or something, do we find the bar owner for that?
Depends on what that ordinance is, isn't it?
Are you addressing me, sir?
Anybody that knows the answer, I don't know the answer.
Generally speaking, the sheriff's office can recoup cost for crimes committed. We have a set rate. They give an evaluation or an estimate of how much time the officer spent, and then that's asked for by a judge.
Would that be,
I would assume your magistrate would take into consideration the culpability of the owner in whatever process was going on and assess the proper fine.
okay, so we do find people when we make calls?
We do it, we recoup investigative costs. It's by statute. We already have a statute remedy in place for the sheriff's office.
I just don't want to single out one industry. If we do it for everybody, I really have no problem with that, but I don't like to discriminate against A, against B, against C, against D.
Well, this is a pretty intense industry, as I understand it, right?
Well, I think and I can't speak for Mr. Salmon and staff about the statute, but I think the general emphasis was if we have to respond because you're not following the ordinance, there inherently you're doing something wrong. If we respond and you're not doing anything wrong and none of the violations of the ordinance were found, I would find it highly doubtful you'd be fined any monetary costs for that.
And you may or may not know the answer to this question. On the security guards that can carry guns,
Yes.
do you have any idea the cost of that item as opposed to using off-duty SO or wildlife like we do at ViStar?
A lot less.
I know what the off-duty rate is for a deputy sheriff. And I can't speak for the sheriff per se, but if I was a betting man, I would say he would not probably have our deputy sheriffs engaged in security at these establishments.
That would be the best security we could have.
It would be kind of like endorsing it, though. And there would be other ethical implications as well if the establishment was indeed gambling and the sheriff's office had off-duty deputies providing the security for them. I just don't see that scenario happening, Ken.
Guess we have to use
Touches.
wildlife officers.
Okay, anything else, Ken?
You go right ahead.
Madam Chair, if I can just clarify again, just for the record, let
Certainly.
the record reflect. As a property owner, property owners have the responsibility of managing and maintaining their properties. Many property owners have leases that are very specific as to criminal activity that may occur. But let's look at a simple infraction, say a derelict vehicle that may be left there. It will be the owner of that property that will receive notice from us, not the tenant, although the tenant may receive comment from us. It'll be the owner that has to take responsibility. That's how that process works. So there's no showing
Gray
difference to one to the other. That's a very clear-cut process of how we operate. So there's no ambiguity there. It's very straightforward. You, the property owner, if you own that property, you're responsible.
Yeah, all we do is just go haul it away. That's not a problem.
But still, you're the responsible party, Madam Chair. That's where, it's like someone selling drugs out of that home, or whatever criminal activity is occurring there ultimately goes back to the property owner.
Correct.
You know, so that's the issue. And we have spoken with others concerning lease agreements, and many have language in there to address criminal activity and how that protects and the property owner to a degree, but it also clearly stipulates that it won't be allowed. And if it is, then there's an opportunity for the property owner to take action. But again, that's something between the property owner, but we're not looking to create any difference between the internet cafes and anyone else. This is a fair across-the-board process.
Is, anything else, Ken?
One thing that bothered me on the parking situation, we have a few businesses in our county, some very close to the SO's office, where parking on the side of the road is a daily occurrence. Yet we're trying to, if we would enforce that, then I wouldn't mind enforcing it here. But I don't want to pick and choose who we try to enforce. If we write an ordinance, I mean, if it's against the law to park on the side of the road, then
We're not enforcing it on the existing internet cafes. We're doing it on new uses, and all new uses in the county have to meet the Article 7 parking regulations,
Regardless of what the business is.
regardless of what
Right.
the business is.
And Madam Chair, if I can, just to clarify here also, that when we look at violations of parking on the right-of-way, you know, there are state statutes that are addressed, and the sheriff or police department can take action. Our codes enforcement staff can also take action. So there are procedures in place. So if there are issues or locations that are in violation or potentially in violation, that once we receive those notifications, you know, at least an investigation can be conducted to determine whether there needs to be enforcement or it could be legal. So we really don't know without knowing the actual location and the justification of such. So just to set the record straight. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Troiano. Anything else, Mr. Swain?
no, ma'am.
Mr. DeSantis?
Question
Yes, sir.
to the staff. Approximately how long has it taken you folks to get to this period of time? How many hours have you all put in to come up with this ordinance as presented? Approximate.
Yeah, yep,
Weeks?
months,
Hundreds of hours?
yes.
All right.
And you've had legal counsel
And
with you throughout the way?
you've been advised from both sheriff's department, legal, the actual participants of the gaming operations or the casino, whatever they want to call it? All right. As I see this, you're talking about an ordinance here that's going to cause us problems down the road no matter what we do. You have the sheriff's departments represented here. There are problems right now with what we have. We have a moratorium on what we have, so we have no new ones coming in. We're trying to pass an ordinance here, or suggest to pass an ordinance here to our county commission, that down the road's going to cause us problems. We're talking about gambling. No matter how you cut it, this is gambling. Yes, old people like to gamble who are retired and have the money, but unfortunately, a lot of poor people gamble who can't afford it. And right now, with as many people as we have unemployed in this state and this country, and as many of them are on assistance from the federal government and our taxpayers' money, we're going to be giving money to a lot of people who are going to take that money and put them right into a gambling operation, knowing they can't win. Anybody in this room who thinks you can win by gambling, I think you have a lot of thoughts. You're dreaming. You don't win in gambling. Very few people can walk away. If you do, you consider yourself lucky and quit at that point. I'm dead against this ordinance to begin with. And the only sensible thing I've heard so far is making more restrictions to keep it from coming into our county. Only U.S. machines should be allowed in gambling casinos in this country, period. With all the problems we've had with China and this virus, if we haven't learned a lesson yet, we're never going to learn it. The second thing I heard was armed guards, security. That makes sense. Well, you're going to have a problem. You might have a person there from law enforcement who can resolve the problem before it gets serious and people get hurt. Cameras. If you're going to do anything at all, have cameras so you have a record of what's going on in these things. But overall, my opinion is we don't need this ordinance. We're trying to pass an ordinance you know is going to cause us problems down the road, and every one of us on this dais can come up with different things to try to throw in here, but we don't know what we're really talking about. All I'm going to tell you is gambling, and it leads to no good. And I don't think the average person in this county can afford to go out there and just throw their money away in these casinos, hoping to win. Let's give them more faith to do better things with their time and money. So I've said my piece. I've held on a long time. I've listened to a whole bunch of different things that don't mean a thing. The county commission is going to have to approve or disapprove this. And the way the staff has come up with this, I think he's done a great job. You put as many restrictions in this thing as you can possibly put in, protecting the residents and the county. And that's what this is all about. And I think we should not even approve this. We should either table it or recommend that the county don't approve it. Thank you.
Unfortunately, they sent it to us to go through it
They're
first.
passing the buck,
Well, we get
which
to do.
is typical for some people in government, but that's okay.
We
I
get to
said
do
what I
the
had to
hard,
say.
we get to do the hard work. Joel?
Yeah, my comment is I've checked with other counties. I've talked to county commissioners in Jacksonville. They've banned them totally. Nassau County's banned them. St. Johns County, from what I understand, has banned them, and I think St. Augustine is talking about it at this point. My opinion is we need to be banned. I mean, there's nothing, I think we need to look at things that come to our county that helps it, that improves it. I see nothing about this that improves anything in a county. If you look at where these usually are, they're usually in areas, they're not in affluent areas. They're usually in areas, or affluent, they're usually in areas of more of the poor people, and I think that's the reason they're coming for Putnam County, because we've got a lot of poor people here. And that's just my opinion.
Thank you, Joel. Joey?
Yes, ma'am.
Thoughts?
Well, it's kind of hard for me to vote on something. I don't know much about them. I just know what this person says and these people say, and I don't know. I mean, I've never been in one. I don't gamble. Play the lottery once in a while, but I don't gamble, and it's kind of tough to figure out what is what. If we're trying to establish grandfather the ones that are already here with this ordinance, that's fine. My suggestion was I think it should go to 11 o'clock, like most businesses close at 11, if we're going to let them stay here. Other than that, I really don't know. You know, the operators are making money somehow, and they got to pay some kind of prize to do that, because why would I want to spend $50 one night to go in there and play on an electronic machine and leave with nothing? So I mean, I can do that on my computer and play solitaire, and don't cost me nothing. But I don't know. It's hard for me to think, because I've never been in one and never had a desire to go in one, so I don't know. But like I said, Joel said, and I know St. Johns County, and I have a county commission friend over there, and they've shut them all down in the county, so. And that's why I think they're coming here, because the young lady said they're coming out of Jacksonville. Well, this is the only place they're open, so you go to wherever something's open if you don't mind traveling.
Karen?
I don't disagree with what I've just heard from the last three folks. I think that the county did do a good job of restricting them, but I agree with the sheriff's office position that they only have created problems. I don't think I've seen any great things that they've added to our community. And they're using up our resources with our sheriff's office, and I'm sure our code enforcement officers, if we adopt this, all these things have to be checked on. And not just at the time of opening. You would have to get a schedule to go back and check on them on a regular basis, that they haven't brought in different machines or whatever. So I agree with the sheriff's office position as well. I know that this was probably drafted so that we're not sued along with the other counties that are being sued by this industry. So I think the staff did do a good job in creating the parameters, if we had to adopt something to avoid that future lawsuits, but which we don't really have the money to fight. But that's my opinion as a person on this
Madam
committee.
Chair, I concur with what you're saying. I don't think we need to have an ordinance.
Microphone,
I don't think we need to have.
turn it on, please.
It's on,
Is it on?
yeah.
Okay, you're picking up, I didn't hear it.
If we write the ordinance or we approve some ordinance, I don't want us to be sued. And you just can't, in my opinion, you can't, I hate to use the word discriminate, but everybody seems to say, well, we're not discriminating, but it certainly appears to me that we're writing it so they can't be here. I just assume they're not here, and then we don't have that problem.
Right.
But if we're gonna take the time to write an ordinance, I think that ordinance, you probably need to, I don't know if Mr. Mathis is the only one that's in the internet cafe business that,
He's the only one who's speaking to us today.
yes, but I mean, in our county here, are there others? that you
There
know
are
of?
9 internet cafes, as we understand. Mr. Mathis is representing one, okay?
Okay, so there's a possibility of maybe 2 or 3 other attorneys?
Not here today to speak with us.
I understand that.
So, but there are 5 internet cafes in the unincorporated area.
Okay.
We don't know if they have attorneys or not. We can only deal with who is here today.
Well,
This is a public hearing of these people that have come to speak.
I think it would probably, and I hope the board would at least consider this, let staff sit down with, if he's the only one that's on the other side, since he said he didn't have much input in this, try to come up with something where they're not gonna try to sue the county.
I think that's what has been done. Is that correct, Mr. Troiano? Hours and hours have been spent on this, and that is what has been done. I would like to ask Mr. Commando if he could come up and answer a couple questions, and I know you don't have a crystal ball any more than we do, but talk to us about the potential for liability and being litigated against.
You know, I think liability exists.
Yeah. Tell them who you are, Rich.
Rich Commander, I'm the county attorney, so. I think there's liability that exists anytime you pass a regulation when someone disagrees with that regulation. I think there's the same level of liability if this commission recommended to the Board of County Commissioners or if the county commission decided to pass an outright ban. I mean, you mentioned Nassau County, you mentioned Jacksonville, and I mean, there are lawsuits that were ongoing as a result of those bans as well. So I don't know that avoiding the situation means that you're in any less liability.
Thank you.
What about the aspect of what I try to get that gentleman with our gentleman, including
They
Alex?
already have, Ken.
They said they didn't.
You
We
did.
did?
They did.
Maybe I
All right,
can clear
let's
that
not
up.
have a he said, she said, she said. I'm taking the word of our staff. And if, Jim, you did work with them?
Madam Chair, maybe I can
Yes,
help explain.
okay.
We did circulate a prior version of the ordinance. Actually, we've circulated multiple copies of the ordinance with the sheriff's office as well as Mr. Mathis on behalf of his clients. Even though we circulated, we solicited input. You heard Mr. Sharp say today there were some aspects of the ordinance that he had recommended, which we did not incorporate from the sheriff's office. There were similarly, I don't want to say incorporate, there were many, if you look at the ordinance you have, I would say a strong majority of the regulations that you're looking at were stricken through in the proposal by Mr. Mathis. And as county staff reviewed those, they believe that those proposed strikes should be included in what was provided to you today. So in every compromise, both sides are unhappy, which leads me to believe that we're closer to a good result.
And I think the fact that you did have input, Mr. Mathis, you may not have sat down across the table, but you did have the opportunity for input, gives us the fact that this has been a long, prolonged process. We're not going to have the perfect situation. I'm not sure whether perfection is something we should ever strive for anything. But I think what they have presented to us, and what I've got a couple suggestions to add to it, but I think we can refine it a little bit more, and we can give a platform through which a provider can operate under high standards. We don't want to just let anyone come in and open up a gambling facility under the guise of an internet cafe. And I believe that's what we're hearing strongly from just about everybody. We want to set standards. We want Putnam County to move forward. Our next item of business is to look at our recommendation of the Putnam County Comprehensive Plan, which sets forth the goals and the ideals that we see Putnam County should have for the next 15 years. And we're certainly not saying, well, we need to bring in more people that pollute the river. We need to bring in more people who build insufficient housing, subpar housing. We need to allow more 50-year-old mobile homes to come in and squat on Hoot Owl Ridge and Interlochen Lake Estates. What we want is to raise the bar in Putnam County. And we can do that somewhat by having strong standards. That someone who wants to come in and operate a business that by its very nature presents heartburn and has a history of problems with law enforcement and criminal activity. We want to avoid criminality in this county. Our crime rate has gone down, and we want to see it keep going down. And things we can do in an ordinance of this nature can be accommodating to those who sincerely want to bring an internet cafe into the county under strict regulations and in partnership with the Putnam County Sheriff's Office is something that is not the best, it's not the ideal. Believe me, in my heart, I want to do away with all gambling in this state. I see too many people losing valuable money that they'll never get back, and they'll never get anything on their return. But from the standpoint of where I sit here, we've been presented with a platform that can grow, an ordinance that is not going to be cast in stone. Anything about this ordinance can be amended at any time, but we need to have a place to start. And we need to have a place to start that is as sound and solid as it possibly can be. With that, I've got a couple things I'd like to see us add to the ordinance, Mr. Salmon. I'd like to add that the IP address for all computers being used in internet cafes be registered at the time the machine is registered, and that all IP addresses be static in nature. Now, there may be a bank of IP numbers that are assigned to a certain location by a provider. That's fine. Just have those IP addresses for that facility recorded. I would also like to add that everyone who uses a computer terminal in an internet cafe log in by name and have the time in and the time out logged in a record that's maintained by the operator of that internet cafe. The reason I say that is I worked with the provider of internet services for every public library in the state of Georgia for many years. And I saw time and again requests come across our desk to trace an IP address to a certain location, to recover a runaway child, or to be able to rescue a child in danger. Or the most chilling was to be able to help the FBI piece together all of the communication done by the flight students who trained in little flight schools across the state of Georgia and then flew planes into the World Trade Center. That is a critical piece, is to be able to take those IP addresses. I would also like to recommend, it can't be part of the ordinance because we don't deal with fines and fees, but I'd like to recommend that the county commission consider reserving a portion of all fees and fines collected from internet cafes to be put in a fund for public libraries to allow them to have greater possibility of providing free internet access to the citizens of Putnam County. And finally, I would like to request, and I think this is probably compliant with the American with Disabilities Act, and I'm pretty sure it is because I've dealt with that too, that at least one terminal in each facility be designated as handicapped accessible, both for wheelchair and for the visually impaired. There would need to be a screen reader and noise-canceling headphones provided for a screen reading program for the blind. The other question I have, and I think this goes to Mr. Salmon, prior to opening any of these establishments, they would be inspected by the building inspector, correct?
Yes.
And the electrical load capability would be determined to be adequate so we don't have short outs and little burns and little fires because the electrical system was overloaded.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions, sermons? I'm sorry I preached to you, but I had to. That you'd like to make before we look at action on this? Mr. Mathis, your closing remarks.
I do have one thing, a
Okay,
couple
Erin.
things to say. If we were to take a vote on this, I would want to see some of the sheriff's recommendations added to it, like the video,
Absolutely.
and the requirement of the security guards.
Class G.
Yeah.
And I would like to see those that I have.
The owner's manual, I mean, that seems easy enough to me.
Yep. Yep, I think all of these things need to be added. Mr. Mathis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me clarify one thing regarding input. I did try many, many times to meet with planning and zoning and the staff of the county and never was able to. I did receive a draft ordinance. I did mark it up. I did return it, but I never got the chance to explain our position and have any type of other meaningful input. I don't want the chair to think that I was somehow misleading
No, sir.
or misstating.
You did have a lot of input with the county commission workshop, as I understand.
I got to speak.
Yes, yes, that's what I meant. Okay.
I'm not sure how much of it was received, but I hope this commission would consider more of that. The issue of whether this is gambling is not the issue. Gambling is covered by state law and has state criminal penalties, and that's what the sheriff enforces, and that's what the sheriff's job is to enforce. What we're talking about are games that fall outside of that and are not considered gambling under state law. And I understand the need for regulation and permitting and requirement. These regulations do nothing more than put all of the game rooms out of business. They impose such strict requirements, and some are just not workable and would not work in their game model. Let me address just the one, just because it came up, the owner's manuals. This software is custom-made software. It's not off-the-shelf software that you have an owner's manual for. The games themselves are on computers, standard desktop personal computers like Dell, like Hewlett-Packard, things of that, and that's what's at these facilities. Other than the fish tables, those are different, but those are also software. I've never seen or heard of an owner's manual for those games.
Well, I think the sheriff's department is most interested in being able to ascertain how those machines are set up and what is allowed on those machines, And if these are custom done for each particular facility, that seems a little bit odd to me
No,
that there's no standardized platform.
I didn't say they were custom for each facility. There are several different, there is not a standard, like fish games, there's not a standard fish game program. There are multiple
Well, I think
programs
whatever's
that are
installed,
custom.
whatever's installed in a facility, there needs to be some sort of documentation that allows the sheriff's office, in the event of a problem, to ascertain where that problem occurred, and if there was owner or operator, user capability for altering the possibility of winning. Am
Well-
I stating that right, Mr. Sharp?
If that was the issue, that's a state criminal law issue.
Well, we understand that. But we want to make sure that anything that calls itself an internet cafe that winds up in Putnam County in the future knows darn well that they try any of that stuff, they're going to jail and their organization's going to be shut down.
We understand that. And,
Okay.
and we understand that
This
the
is not
sheriff has
addressing
that authority.
existing people. This is addressing in the future.
Yeah.
So,
It's only, if I understand it correctly, it's only addressing things in the future that are related to zoning and parking, right? It's, the rest of the stuff applies to existing.
Yes, it does apply to, you're exactly right. It
Okay,
does
I'm
apply,
sorry.
it does apply to existing game rooms, and
Okay.
we'll close all of those.
well, I think there's standards. And I think if Putnam County wants to move forward in a positive manner, we have to decide whether our standards are going to be high, or our standards are going to be mediocre, or our standards are going to be low.
But they
And
shouldn't.
that's the
but-
decision of this commission and the county commission. Yes, sir.
But they shouldn't be impossible, and I think that's where
Well,
they're at.
impossible. I could write you a provision that would be impossible. I'm
sure
being
you could.
reasonable. I'm being reasonable.
Okay.
So,
That's our position.
thank you,
Thank
sir. Mr. Sharp, your closing comments.
Chairman, very briefly, first of all, thank you for allowing us to speak in this process. We certainly appreciate it. I'd be remiss if I didn't look at the other jurisdictions that drafted ordinances. To say that they banned internet cafes is not an adequate description of what they did. The majority of them used language, they identified these businesses operating simulated gambling devices. And they went on to address what an internet cafe means to most of us, which is you go in, you fax something, you get on the internet and check your email. And then just to touch base back on the manuals, yes, there are manuals for the existing fish games. They're commercial games. They're sold all over the world. They do come with manuals, and they do explain right off the bat exactly what you're dealing with, which I think would be a great tool for code enforcement to know. If they had the manual, they could look at this and say, well, no, you can't do this. Not only does it violate state statute, it violates our ordinance. And as just to address the ones that are on computers, we're not asking for the software. We're not asking for any trade secrets. But somewhere down the line, if you buy a piece of software, and you all know this, there's going to be an instruction manual for the operator to how to operate it. How else do they get their whatever profit or monetary thing that they're getting out? And then the last thing is we're not asking the board to modify the Chuck E. Cheese carve-out to where there are actual real arcade games where you take your family and so forth and you have prizes and so forth. I think one of those would be wonderful in Putnam County. And again, thank you all for your time, and I hope it was very enlightening. Thank you.
Staff, Mr. Troiano,
Yes.
Mr. Salmon, final comments.
You have options available to you. You can recommend that there be an ordinance that outlaws them. We've given you a first blush cut of the ordinance. You can provide us with some direction as to how you might want that to be changed. And then we can bring back a modified copy of that ordinance. Or if you think the ordinance is okay the way it is, you can recommend approval, send it up to Board of County Commissioners.
And we can also amend
You could-
what you've presented to us to send to
Right,
county
and
commission.
you can do that.
Jim?
Just to echo what John said, what we have in front of you is a very comprehensive ordinance, and it does address a lot. There's been a lot of time and effort, as we talked about, in this. So if we were to take the changes that this commission requested and add to it, we can certainly do that, and then present that to the Board of County Commissioners. We already have a meeting scheduled, or at least we're on their meeting schedule, to provide first and second reading for that. I saw only a few requests, so I could go through those with you now at this time.
Let's make sure we got them all.
We can add that to a document, and then that document would be presented as is to, if this planning commission agreed, would be presented as is to the Board of County Commissioners if approved.
Let's go through the recommendations and then let the commission deliberate and decide whether we want to incorporate those in the existing
John, would you mind if I
ordinance.
did this real quick? So what I do have from the sheriff's office is adding owner's manual and country of origin, adding class G to the security guard, adding video recording, and would that be digital recording?
I would not be opposed to analog. It might be a little expensive though, but I wouldn't restrict them to their.
Okay, so just video recording?
Some sort of,
How long would it need to be maintained?
in the very least 30 days. And,
Okay.
these things, sometimes things aren't brought to our attention until a much later date. And that would benefit the owners as well if they're able to go back
Right.
and look and see what actually occurred.
It was inside and outside.
That's
of the
correct, I do have that, yes ma'am, inside and out. Maintained for at least 30 days, and that would have to be subject to inspection by sheriff's office or planning and development staff.
Must be presentable to the sheriff's office.
Correct, and to planning and
And to-
development staff.
Yeah, and to code.
Madam Chair, I have comments from you. IP address for all computers, have them be registered and static, and to be recorded. When you speak of being recorded,
I would say recorded in with the registration, and a list of those could be available on the, the sheriff's office could have a list of it. You're going to have some kind of automated registration, I would assume, an Excel spreadsheet or whatever, that could be maintained by the county and then given to the
well,
sheriff's.
that would be maintained by the owner-operator unless we need, or you're asking for it to be presented.
Are we going to keep a record of all the registrations in the county's possession?
Yes?
So that would just be one other item in that registration process.
Okay, so a list maintained by the owner-operator and then provided to Planning and Development Services. I have everyone who uses a computer log in by name. So when you said by name, that could
First
be a
and last.
nickname, first name, is that,
Legal name.
how are we going to be able to maintain what the legal name is? We have no opportunity to determine what their legal name is.
Well, just log in by their first and last name. Do they have to present any kind of identification proving they're 21?
Not that I know of.
Well, if no minors are allowed, how do you police it?
However they monitor and allow access, I don't know the answer. Maybe Mr. Mathis can provide that. But I can tell you, we're not going to be there to monitor, to collect a driver's license or a Florida ID card.
Okay, I think at least by name, just name and time in and out. So we have something to start with, and you can match that to a video recording.
Why couldn't they do a log when they just walked into their place?
Yeah, or log into the computer with,
Not logging, could we just have just a log,
yeah, just a paper log,
paper log, don't matter.
whatever, some kind of a log.
Because I don't think you log into the game.
No, you log into
Your
the.
name ain't on the game, it's like.
Log into a terminal, and you go in and sit down at a terminal, you know what terminal they sat in. It should be the name of the person and the terminal they're using.
So you're looking for a sign-in and sign-out sheet at the entrance for any person entering the facility, whether they use the
Which table?
gaming machines, whether they use anything inside, but as they make entry in there, their name goes on the log.
Yep,
First name,
I'd say first and last,
okay, time in, time out.
yes. And I don't believe that this is a violation of any kind of privacy law.
And how long would that log have to be maintained?
I'd go with the 30 days at least, again, just as the sheriff's office requested.
I have accessibility, one terminal designated ADA for wheelchair and, as you said, seeing impaired blind, that there'd be a screen reader and sound canceling headphones
There would need to be.
at one station.
And there also should be a handicap parking facility.
Well, that would be based on our
That's right, that's in
code
the-
too, so,
Yep, it's covered.
okay? So, Madam Chair, that's what I have from the sheriff's office, and that's what I have from you.
Anybody else add anything else to that?
I'd like to add, I'd like to do it, I just have a problem with industrial and C4. If we could just make it C2 with the special use.
I think C2 is much too general of a classification to do this.
Well, that's where all of them are now. We just said that.
I don't know, Madam Chair, the location, the current zoning location for each of the 5 that we
I
have.
don't either.
There's
Can
one
we-
south of Crescent City.
Can
Yes.
we,
Norm
I
Saul's
would
is-
say anything in the future be required to be in C4 IL.
Again, the
That is-
current, the existings are not going to have to change.
Right,
The future would.
yes. Yes. Is that pretty much what you intended when you put that in?
Yes, ma'am. Am I
Okay.
correct, John? Yes.
So what this is saying, that anybody coming in the future and wanting to put an internet cafe into Putnam County, it must be in an area zone C4. Now, that doesn't mean when you walk in and find a spot that's not, then, that you, it has to be zone C4 then. You can always come before this body and have it rezoned or request it to be rezoned. So that's another owner piece. Is that
That's
correct?
correct.
Okay.
Anything else, Madam Chair?
Anything else?
I would like
Time.
the hours of operation like 11 to 11. I mean, closing at 9 o'clock is,
Most places close at 11. Most of
so
your
if we,
regular.
if we open at 11 and close at 11, that gives them 12 hours. They gotta be able to get happy in 12 hours. And still be
Would you
gone way before.
amenable to like a weekend hour versus a weekday hour? I don't know, I'm just throwing out an idea.
Again, the purpose behind the time was from a safety and from a crime standpoint.
9, yeah,
I think 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. is a good start. This is not to say that if everybody complies and we don't have a single call to the Putnam County Sheriff's Office over the next year, this ordinance can't be revised to make it 10 or 11 o'clock. But let's get a baseline,
see how it goes at what they got.
see how it works.
Whatever the desire of the commission.
10 o'clock.
Leave it be as it is.
10 o'clock.
Okay.
What do you say, Joel?
My opinion is that it sounds like we're making it so rough that they're not going to be in business anyway. And so we just need to ban them. I mean, I don't see any reason. It seems like we spent a lot of time on this, and they bring no advantage to the county from a tax purposes to, really, I don't see what they add to our way of life. So I don't understand why we waste a lot of time on something. Whenever you look at other counties around the perimeter county, pretty much all of them's banned. They've already gone through this dog and pony show of trying to make it so tough, and they open them up. I mean, I've seen them in Jacksonville open up, then they close them. I mean, it's just, you're putting these people through a lot of things that I don't see the necessary, just ban them.
Madam Chairperson, maybe we can save a little bit of time, just by a raise of hands. This is not unfair. Anyone here for banning, raise your hand. Well,
Well, it's hard to do when somebody's already, it's hard to take someone's
Right.
right away that's already
Stop sign
done it.
you're not banning what's existing, you're banning future.
No,
You're
no.
taking
My
a stand.
feeling on this is, and I'm looking at this, I'm trying to look at this as from my librarian eyes, from a legal perspective. We're not just outright saying, nah, can't have any. We're giving you an opportunity to bring internet cafes to Putnam County. but you gotta meet our standards, or you don't come. That's the way I look at it.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
it's
sir.
just like farming. Every year they bring new rules and regulations, and you either gotta go with the flow or close up and go home. And food safety is one of them. It's, people don't realize what the farmer goes through now on food safety.
Yeah.
I've been through it all, and it's
That's
a
why you're not a
magnet.
farmer anymore.
And, no, I'm not a farmer no more, but it started out, we have to keep logs for visitors coming in and out of our farm, whether you're delivering some diesel fuel, or you're delivering chemicals, or you're delivering parts or whatever. When you step on the property now, on a farmer's property, you have to sign in. And then you sign out when you leave that property. That's how they trace everything.
It's a Homeland Security issue.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And everything's gotta be locked up, and you can't leave the barn open when you go to the field like we used to. Everything's gotta be locked up, and
Keys in your pocket.
that's right. It changed. Everything's changed.
So
Okay.
nothing else, Madam Chair, I'll leave it at,
Leave
is
it
that where
with
I'm at?
us. Do I hear a motion for something to get this on the floor?
I don't know how to make it.
You didn't like my recommendation of having we're gonna call it opposing counsel and staff counsel.
I think we have used enough of staff's time on this issue. Mr. Commando, I'm going to ask you and Mr. Perry a question. You can just nod yes or no. May the chair make a motion?
It's not customary, but it's not prohibited either.
I agree with Mr. Commando.
I mean, what you can do is you can pass the gavel to the vice chair and you can make a motion. That's traditionally the procedure where that happens.
I would like to move that we.
Madam Chair, I would record that on the record.
Pardon?
Did you pass the gavel to him?
Yes.
Oh, I have just transferred the gavel to Vice Chair Aaron Fortner. I would like to move that we recommend that the county commission put into place an ordinance as we have amended it for the period of 1 year, so that it can be evaluated, and at the end of that year, staff and the major stakeholders have input into whether to continue that ordinance as it is, amend it, or remove it from the rolls, the record. That's my motion.
I'll second it. So we can have a discussion.
And now you're Madam Chair, so you have
Oh, I'm chair, and I don't know what to do.
You better learn.
Okay, that's right. We have discussion on the motion.
I'd like to discuss it. I respect the motion you made, but at this point in time, I think anyone who has heard us this evening go through what we don't know about internet casinos. We're trying to put something forward that we really know very little about, and we've had staff, we've had sheriff's department input. The only logical thing I can see to do, don't even present it to the county commission. Present it as we do not approve, and disprove the whole thing. I would not vote to approve it at all. I would vote it down and not make the recommendation to the county commission to even suggest to go through this thing, because it's going to get changed 16 ways from loose, and they may just wind up tabling it anyway.
You never know what they're going to do. We do not know what the county commission is going to do.
I would say defeat it.
Madam Chair?
Is there any other discussion?
I just want to know, are you adamant about not getting the two parties that are concerned together?
I think there's been ample time for that. I'm sorry that there's not been time enough in staff's day, but you're looking at the planning staff. Got 2.5 people, and we're fixing to have 1.5. So I think they've done an incredibly good job with this. I think Mr. Commando has given excellent advice both to this group and to the county commission. And I think at this point, we put into place a year trial period, a
About
365-day trial period.
About a 180-day trial period.
I think we need to give staff the opportunity to have time to review it and have time to make a reasonable recommendation based on trend. I'm not sure you can get a decent trend in 180 days. But I would say the entire document would need to be enforced.
And now, just from my understanding is, it's going to be enforced on the ones that's open now. This isn't just
Everything but the land, right, Jim?
strictly for
Land and
future.
parking.
And we'll allow opening for new internet cafes.
Yeah.
The ones that are in existence now have to comply with this in 30 days, with the exception of parking and
Land.
Zoning.
zoning.
They would be legally non-conforming as the zoning is considered.
And that's the terminology that's used. And we have a lot of legally non-conforming in this county, don't we?
So,
It's not, this would not be the only legally non-conforming.
as, I don't know, as I see it from this end, we're putting a moratorium on new construction, to use a terminology that I use all the time. Well, you
What we're doing, Ken, is we're providing an opportunity for legitimate businesses to come into Putnam County and establish a high-standard operation. We are telling those who can't meet these standards that this may not be the place for them to operate.
I'd rather see us just do away with it all if we're gonna try to hide behind a curtain and do something. I can't, I'm tired of government hiding that way.
This is not hiding.
No,
What this is
it's restrictions that make it impossible for them to comply.
if you're a legitimate business owner and you genuinely want to come to Putnam County, then you need to comply with the standards of Putnam County, not your standards.
Then just ban it. If we don't want them, ban it. Do away, I mean, if you want to do away with them, do away with them. Don't play games with them. It's not fair to them and it's not fair to our citizens.
I can speak, right? Yeah,
Yes.
I know Susan does a lot.
You can speak.
I don't disagree with your motion because I would like to give the commission that is appointed by, elected by the citizens the opportunity to have a say in it. I mean, even if we say don't, ban them or whatever, they still have the final say. I know that. But I would like them to have our take on this ordinance with the changes that we've made, and see what they think of it.
And as far as,
They get to go through the hard part too, don't they, Rich?
correct, and as far as the process is concerned, you still have 2 public hearings. You may have watched some of the workshop where this topic was discussed, and there were a number of citizens that came in and talked about the jobs it creates. So there is benefit to citizens, and that's part of the reason why when you talk about a flat-out ban, there may be some unintended consequences of what you're describing there as well.
I just can't get over the fact, we deal with government on the federal level, the state level, now the county and the city level.
Life.
If you don't want to do it, ban it, just like everybody else around us has done. Don't play games with it. I'm against what we're doing, but I'd rather see you ban it than to do it, to ban it this way.
I leave that wisdom to the commission.
And that needs to go on, and like Mr. Commando said, pass it on to the commission.
That's right.
And they get to have the next
public
fun.
hearings. And they have 2 public hearings.
Then we need to send something to the commission and state that to them. Give them the opportunity to ban. to
They know
ban it.
they have that opportunity. They know it full well.
And Mr. Troiano does pass along this commission's sentiments and how things are voted through when the presentation's made before the board.
Is there any more discussion on the motion that's on the table?
Let's call the question.
Then I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
I'm not voting.
Okay.
So the motion carries.
So we have a no vote, one no vote, 4 ayes and 1 nay. The motion carries, correct?
Yes.
All right.
We're going to take a
then-
15-minute,
For your record, the no vote counts as a nay.
pardon?
The no vote counts as a nay.
No vote counts as a nay.
You're required to cast your vote.
We are going to take a 10-minute recess before we go into our next entertaining, invigorating, and enchanting part of the meeting, which I hope our county officials stay for. Yeah, I'll let you guys off the hook. We're going to deal with the comp plan next. So let's take a 10-minute break.
I'm giving Sue
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we're ready for round 3. All right. Before we move on, at the advice of 2 different councils, I want to reiterate that we cannot be the voice of one side or the other in an argument if we have had ex parte communication with one of the parties involved. We have got to make sure that if we are contacted by somebody about a case, if they just ask information, give them the information. But if they want to lobby you for one position or another, you need to tell them that the public hearing on this case will be at 4 p.m. on January 27th or whenever, and that you can hear their concerns, their input at that time. But not to take their input and then convey it onto the board and then, for whatever reason, give the perception that something might not be totally kosher. We have got to maintain total impartiality when we sit down at this desk. Now, we have our own personal opinions, and those are good. But we cannot constantly be presenting the opinions of one side or the other if we've had prior conversation with one side or the other. Okay. Putnam County Comprehensive Plan 2020 to 2035. What you all received in your packet is the final draft, I pray. Now, I have read this through in its entirety. Now, I'm going to say one thing just for the record because you know I can't stand it not to say something. I'm really regretful that we did not have the data and analysis as we were going through each element, because that data and analysis is excellent. If you've not had a chance to read it because it gives you a really good picture of the county in which we live. It's beautifully done. It's excellent. I think there may have been a few areas where we would have done more with our amendments to the comprehensive plan had we had this as we were reviewing. That said, I think y'all did a damn good job. And I think we are inches away from giving this our blessing unless we have a lot of discussion tonight. And passing this on as a recommendation to the county commission. Mr. Brown.
Madam Chair, yeah, I would just, I walked in here, I believe we made and incorporated all the changes, but I know there's a few of you that have some questions about some of those, and we can discuss those. But over the past, 9-10 months that we've been working on this, I think we've got, I told you before, and I'll tell you again, I think we got all the changes. I will grant you it's probably not 100%. There are, and I know because some of you have pointed out, and we can discuss where you think that there may be some others that we need to add. There is one policy in here that I know you have not seen, and I want to point that out to you. And it's policy D151 in the infrastructure element. And it relates to the incorporating the water supply plan into the comp plan.
And this is something we did not have the water supply
Yeah,
facilities
yeah.
plan until after we met the last time.
Right, so I just wanted to, that's one that I know you have not seen previously, and I wanted to point that out to you, so that but it's a one-liner that basically incorporates the water supply plan, which we're required by state statute to develop, and we are given the option, and we chose to incorporate it as part of the comp plan.
And I believe Mr. Teeple mentioned that last time, that this would be added to the infrastructure element. They were waiting on this final plan from the county. D151.
It's on page 3 of the infrastructure element.
I found it, I just didn't know what D it was.
Microphone, sir.
Pardon? What was the question?
Nothing.
Okay,
I just wanted to know what it was so I could read that one line.
okay.
All right. Questions? Aaron, do you have a comment?
I do, on page 5 of future land use,
Okay.
under policy A145,
Wait a minute, A145?
Yep.
yeah,
A145, and that's on page 8?
page 5. Page 5.
Okay, got it.
It says, roads in new residential subdivisions shall be paved or built with a pervious material approved by the county public works director. I thought that we had,
We took the pervious out.
I thought that we had agreed we didn't want any more, unpaved roads in new subdivisions.
Right, we took the pervious material approved by the county public works director out.
I think part of that was as our public director changes, so it would be a moving target all the time, so the roads just need to be paved.
And Mike, on that same page up under A142, line 2, the Land Development Code shall provide protection measures for the land's continuation. Land seems to be
Okay.
extra there.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. We'll catch that. And then, let me go back to the issue of A145. I just want to make sure that the majority of the planning commission here today agrees that basically leave it like it is originally today, which
Right.
is all new. No, we're not, we're
No,
saying,
my understanding is that we want just that there shall be paved, and that's it.
That's it, stop it
We
there.
don't need any of the rest of the red in it, just
all
shall be paved.
all roads and new subdivisions
Shall
will
be paved.
Roads and new subdivisions shall be paved, period. Yep.
Okay, where are we going next?
I want to go to page 12 in future land use. Policy A18.3. Is this a reference to the point scale? It's on page 12. Oh, you're in the data, Go back. Yeah.
Well, we have, as you recall, I mean, it originally did have direct reference to the point score
Okay.
policy. Now, the point score policy, as you're aware, you decided to recommend deleting that. However, we did tie in, as you recall, in a number of the future land use categories, the ability to increase densities based on certain
Okay.
criteria. So that's, it
I
still
don't
fits
remember,
that.
that last sentence, public access and boat ramps to waterways, allowance of open space and preservation of habitat, that's part of the point system.
Yeah, only thing we talked about was water, if they had.
Water and sewer.
We had, yeah.
The only density bonuses, and I
You
think
are
that
correct. You are
those are
correct.
spelled out clearly in each of those categories where we.
Right.
So can we strike policy A18.3?
No, I think.
Entire policy? Yes, we could.
I think that probably would be fine, because we're not looking at the land development code. We put this in comprehensive plan. So the land development code doesn't come into play with this, does it?
Not, no, not in this case. For this policy, it doesn't.
How are you all on striking A183?
We've already got the water and sewer in the other classification.
That's exactly what I just said, yes.
Yeah, I don't see any reason to keep it.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody want to keep it?
There's-
No.
Going once, twice, and made the X. Okay.
I've got one, if I may. It's,
Yes, sir.
On the next page, on page 14.
I have one on page 14 too. Go ahead.
Mine is that we have a maximum of 8 on the urban reserve on B, is what I'm seeing is is that a maximum of 8 units per acre? Because I
Yes.
think that's,
Think
Maximum 8
vertical.
dwelling units per acre is
Pardon?
what it
Think
said.
vertical.
well, I was thinking vertical, and I think 8's too less. I think you'd have to, I would think maybe 12 might be better. I don't know where we came up with 8, because,
We just need to put a plus sign between that 4 and 8. And make it equal 12.
because you can do, on 45-foot lots, which we're doing all the time in other areas, there are seven lots per acre. That's pretty much all you can get on a single family. When you step up, then you can go to 12 per acre, but that would be more of an apartment complex type thing.
Yeah, provided they have the water.
But you have to
Well,
have
they're
water
over
and sewer
two,
to
so
do
they
any
have
of
to.
it.
Well, anything over.
Yeah, water and sewer to do any of it, so.
Have to have it, so.
Yep.
I mean, I would think that we have fire trucks that could handle that, and I think fire trucks has a lot to do with if
That
they can
has a lot
fight
to
a
do.
fire.
The height is an issue.
Yeah, the height is an issue, yeah.
So you say make that 8 a 12?
That's what my suggestion is.
Anybody opposed to making that 8 or 12?
No, I'd be in favor of that.
What is your opinion, staff? Mike?
Staff has no problem with moving that to 12. I mean, the big issue from a staff standpoint is the water and sewer when you get above 2. After that, I mean, we will deal with the fire service on the height through project review and approval. We will deal with transportation impacts on roads through the approval process and concurrency. So from a staff standpoint, we can address all the impact issues that would be associated with that. So I don't really have a lot of heartburn with raising that to 12.
Would 20 be too much?
We have up to 24 in the urban service.
This is a step down from urban.
Okay, that's my mistake. That's
Yeah,
my mistake.
so we've got
Okay.
that with urban service. Urban reserve is a step down because it doesn't necessarily have all the infrastructure in place. It's planned to be there, but it's not
Okay,
necessarily there yet.
Maybe 8's enough for that one, then
Yeah.
I was mistaken.
Thank you, Joel. In item A, right above that, agricultural activities are strongly encouraged.
Okay.
I'm an English teacher, okay? I taught English for a year. It wasn't any fun.
And we will, Madam Chair, you pointed out to me, we will go back and confirm about making sure of whatever is, the chair had pointed out, there were some areas where we've calculated best
Yep,
management
capitalized
practices
best
versus
business, yeah.
and not. We will make that consistent. I thought we had caught them all, but
Is there any chance you can get us an alphabetical list of acronyms?
did you not?
We have a glossary.
I thought we have one. We have one, and I thought it was included in your pack. I will have that out to you before the end of the week,
Okay, just so it's part of the final document that
Yes.
we're going to take to the county commission.
because I've got a list on my desk. I thought it was included.
That's all right.
If it wasn't, I made a mistake.
Hey, it's a minor piece. It's just when you read it, if you could have that, somebody that's not familiar with all the terminology could pull it out and have it available Makes a lot of sense.
So we changed 2B to 12 instead of 8.
Yes, we changed
For
it to
the
12.
urban reserve, the maximum density will be 12 units per acre.
Okay, anything else? I want to thank staff again and again and again for all of the work that you have done this past month, getting this document to where we are today. It's just phenomenal. Anything else in the text of the comp plan revision that you would like to address?
I want to address recreation and open space element.
Okay, you're looking at the data and analysis right now,
Yes.
sir. Do you want to address that? We can't change that too much. Well, we can, but what do you
Well, I
want?
just have a question about the facilities of the boat ramps. Crescent City has 3 boat ramps. I think Pomona Park's got a boat ramp. Willaca has a boat ramp in their cities. We shouldn't include them in that.
Yep, they're not, the inventory is not complete on boat ramps.
This inventory just included unincorporated,
It
And
includes
public.
county, it's county boat ramp.
And county-owned.
yeah.
Are we putting, well, I don't know, part of it, I know the city got grants to do some of it through fishing grants, and
If,
That's an incorporated area.
so we don't put that, any of
there's,
that.
I mean,
I'm just asking a
I
question.
don't
because
know, do we?
Because if somebody come look at this and you say, well, that's all the boat ramps we got plenty of boat ramps. I mean, there's more than,
There's not plenty, but
I mean, there needs to be more boat ramps, but you got 3 in Crescent City.
we can endeavor, and we,
I mean,
it
I
won't
don't
be
know,
that
it's up to the-
difficult. If the desire is, 2 things, staff can get, and include the inventory of all, even the boat ramps, and access in municipalities in addition.
That are public.
We can
Yeah.
include
Yeah.
those.
Because if you come in as an outsider, you wouldn't know that Crescent City had 3
Right.
boat ramps. I do. 'cause I
that's
live
good,
there.
that's actually a good point.
Yep.
From somebody coming and doing a study on our county and looking at that, that's a very
For
good.
development, and they say, oh, there's 3 boat ramps in Crescent
This
City.
data and analysis section would be excellent for a statement of need in any kind of grant writing process.
Yep.
I mean, it spells it out very clearly, very cleanly, and I would even hope that a copy of this data and analysis could be separated and made available in each of the county offices. Give it to the public libraries. Let me go back to
I was
my.
very interested in reading on that part.
We will-
I thoroughly enjoyed reading it.
When this is adopted,
learned a lot of
we will
things.
send the whole document to all the libraries.
I had a feeling it would be probably part of that.
Remember, also, just another reminder, that the data and analysis, the only part that gets adopted is the goals, objectives, and policies.
Right, the data and
Data
analysis.
and analysis is
appends.
background information.
We need to look at the maps that are right before the data analysis section and make sure that we're comfortable with these maps. And one last pass over them, because I think there's something in here we hadn't seen before. I know there is.
This one on Putnam County Boulevard?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't noticed.
I was like, where is that? I'm trying to find a road I recognize. On the first one, we went over the ag-rural residential out in the Putnam Hall area, and 26 going down toward Melrose. I think we went over that clearly, and I think everybody should understand what we did there and why we did it. One of the things we've all got to do is make sure we are thoroughly versed in this document, because we're going to get questions about it. So study it, understand why, understand what's involved in it. The next page, which is the Clifton Road changes, and that's going to rural center, and also eliminating the industrial
Right.
PUD that was the Walmart property.
And that is the entire, I checked and based on a question from Joey a few meetings ago and confirmed he was correct. Our map, our present map for future land use was wrong. It is the entire parcel that, but that,
That's what I thought
we'll
it
make
was, yeah.
sure that all gets
Yep.
changed.
It started like that, and then we added the front parcel to it, to Clifton Road.
But
That's how it
that whole
eventually
parcel
started.
will be switched back to ag because it is industrial.
Yeah.
And we're adding a good bit of rural center down there because that is a growing area.
And
So, my only concern with that, no, I'm fine with it, never mind. I had a concern and then I looked at the map and realized where I was. Okay. Next, any more other questions on Clifton Road? Going out the 207 corridor? Just for clarification, so I don't forget it, what is the south road that we're coming down to? What's the,
Cracker Swamp.
that's Cracker Swamp, okay.
yeah, and then over to, I believe it's Walden is what,
Yep. All right. The next one we have not seen before. Please talk us through this.
this,
What page are you talking?
We're on, it's
yeah, this is.
East Palaca, Putnam County Boulevard.
You gotta
Next-
go up front. You're too far
We're in
ahead.
we're in the map section up front, Joel.
Back
Up
of the,
front.
This is one,
I think it's after that, Joel.
Yeah, it's after the red line stuff, before you get to the data and analysis.
Yeah, that's where I went, I thought that's where I was.
those are,
Go back the other way.
You were so close to it.
Back up.
You're right there. Keep going.
That's
You
infrastructure,
got it, you got it.
housing, transportation,
No, you gotta go through,
The plain white.
future land maps.
nope, that's not it.
Okay.
You want a plain white paper, you don't want the brown bar at the top, so keep going back to your left.
I'll just go to his.
Works?
these are areas that are,
Explain it.
are zoned residential, if you look at the underlying zoning, and consist, at least the areas we're changing, or proposing to change, are zoned residential, and are primarily residential uses. Staff's concern, and the reason we're suggesting these changes, is that if something happens to one of those residential structures, and many of
It
them are
can't be
being used now,
rebuilt.
they could not come back without a land use change because they're legally, they're non-conforming. So that is the reason for the request for these changes.
Gotcha.
We left those areas that are zoned at commercial and have commercial uses, we've left them as commercial future land use. But that is the reason for the suggested changes in this. And to be honest with you, it's been a concern of mine since day one, when I got here over 9 years ago, was looking at this and a bunch of residential units that if one burned down and they wanted to rebuild, we'd have to force them to change the land use and because it was the wrong land use for the zoning. So it's sort of one of my projects that I've had that I finally can.
And you are leaving a list of any other items of heartburn that you have, so Jim will have them to address in the future, so we don't have to play hide and seek?
Yeah.
And the next piece is
This is one we brought late. It was the, off Buffalo Bluff, it's the water management
Right.
district property that was rural residential and,
Murphy Creek?
yeah, is that Murphy's Creek? I'm not sure. Yeah, Murphy's Creek is in that area,
Yeah.
but it's all water management district land. It's appropriate to be conservation.
Okay. Anybody have a problem with that? And the next one is the US 17 corridor from basically the bridge to, the two bridges, between the bridges.
It,
And this is
now,
going.
this again is where the county is investing in water and sewer infrastructure. The state has invested in widening of 17
Right.
and allowing for the higher use of that's allowed in the urban service. Staff believes it's appropriate and it helps support the county's investment in infrastructure. So the allowance to be able to go to a higher density, staff believes is appropriate.
I have one question. Why are we not changing the ones that are zoned commercial to urban service?
because the commercial, future land use will allow a more intense commercial use than the urban service, and primarily your C4s aren't allowed in the urban service. So
and-
we left the commercial, and a lot of those have existing commercial uses on them
And single occupancy homes are allowed in urban service?
in urban service, yeah. Or you can go all the way up to, if the change is allowed, that
20.
you've recommended, you can go up to 24 units per acre, but single family is allowed, yeah.
Any other questions, concerns, issues, recommendations for the 2020-2035 comprehensive plan? Do I hear a motion that we ask staff to finalize the few changes we made and have the document ready to be transmitted to the Board of County Commissioners?
Second.
So moved in a second. I hear any discussion. All right, Joel, all in favor say aye. All opposed? You better not. Okay, one question I have on the data and analysis, we don't have the raw data from Kimley Horn on their spreadsheet, their matrix.
I will contact the consultant tomorrow, and
It'd be nice to have that. And let them do the acronyms, Mike. All right, further on into your document, anything else? Oh, before we leave the comp plan, I'm going to ask staff to get me a copy, or 6 copies, or 5 copies. I can use my copy. 5 copies that I can make appointments with the Board of County Commissioner members and deliver them to them and have a brief discussion with them and give them my blessing and say, go forth and read and enjoy, because it's really riveting reading. And at that point, I think we will ask Mr. Suggs and Mr. Troyana to get with Mr. Suggs and schedule a workshop with the Board of County Commissioners. And as Mr. Troyano has expressed to me, we'll start out with a full-day workshop. And if we can truncate it and end early, we'll truncate it and end early. Now, it would be really, really good if some of you could be there. If you can get there, and you will be a productive member of the discussion, which I know most of you will, be there. When it's scheduled, we'll let you know. But Mr. Teeple will be there. If it's done before February 12th, Mike will be there. If it's after February 12th, we're going to go to Green Cove Springs and drag you kicking and screaming down the highway. Or Jim will be there. And John will be there. And we will present this to the Board of County Commissioners and be grilled. And at that point, they will then make their changes, recommendations, and the next step will be a transmittal to the state of Florida, to some alphabet agency that I can't remember. Is it DEO?
DEO,
Department of Economic Opportunity.
and all the other state agencies will get a copy also.
Yeah, the alphabet agencies all get their copies, and they get a chance to review it, don't they?
Yep,
And they all get a chance to say, you got to change this, or we hate it. You can't do that. And we might be talking about this in 3-4 months from now, whenever they get around to doing it. And once everything is done to their okey-dokey satisfaction, the county commission adopts it as the comprehensive plan of Putnam County. At which point, we will send Mike a copy so that he can have it leather-bound and kept for posterity's sake. But seriously, staff, you all, Nancy, you and, is it Jenny? Did a phenomenal job. And I know Mike and Jim and John were all involved in this, getting this thing together. It's massive, but it's really the culmination of everything we've been doing since.
It's an accomplishment.
February of last year. And I think we probably understand a whole lot more about Putnam County than we did when we started.
Yes, we do.
But it's a good feeling to be at this point. If anybody doesn't feel good about it, you can go home.
Where are we going to propose this meeting with the county?
As soon as it's possible on their calendar.
No, where?
It will be here.
Here?
We will be out there and they will be up here. And I would request, Jim, that we have a table for at least you and me and Brian, because I can't stand at the podium very long. You have to accommodate your handicapped, I don't call it.
That table's back there, Madam Chair, real easy to move around.
I don't claim that moniker very often, but I don't want to stand up for 3 hours. But anyhow, I think we'll have good sailing with that, and I will have greased the skids before y'all get there. So hopefully I can meet with everyone next week. And I have to meet with them individually, so I'll be a broken record by the time it's over with. But I think they're anticipating getting this, and I think it's going to be really good to be able to say, guys, you got it. And we're going to meet, there's going to be some question, there's going to be some, well, you got to do that, we got to do this, we got to change that. Okay. They're either going to take it, amend it, and send it on. They're going to look at it and say, you got to be kidding, go back and start over, we're going to replace you all. Or they're going to say, we like it, we're going to send it on to the state. You know, they've got 3 choices.
I pick C.
So anyhow, all right, we need to look at the minutes. We have corrected minutes from October 14th, and we have new minutes from December 9th. Do I hear, will gladly entertain action on either of those.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of October 14th, 2020.
You certainly may.
Tom seconded.
I think Tom did that, so we've got time for you yet. Don't
Oh, I
worry.
said Tom did.
Oh, yeah, I thought you said I will. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the corrected minutes of October 14th, 2020. Any questions? Tom? Any questions, any corrections, anything else? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Opposed? Good. Now, we'll look at the minutes of December 9th, 2020.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of December 9th, 2020.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Joey and Joel. Joel. Okay, I have a motion and a second on the floor to approve the minutes of December 9th, 2020. Any questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so like, I vote aye. Opposed, like sign. Well, folks, it only took us 3 hours and 21 minutes. I thought it was going to take us 4 hours more. I thank you all for your time. I thank you for all your hard work. I appreciate your being here.
I have a question. Are
Yeah.
we meeting in 2 weeks?
Yeah,
The 10th, there is a meeting on the 10th, I want to remind you. The
Okay, I
regular
wanna make
meeting,
sure, 'cause
and would you please tell us what's on the agenda?
we will, I'm hoping there will be 5 items on there. I don't know if I can get them all done, but you'll have at least 4. There's 3 rezonings and 1 PUD. There's a list of things and projects on my board that
Is there a
you're gonna be
PUD
coming.
that we've seen before?
That's not, no, ma'am.
Well, potentially there's one, not the one you're thinking about.
Okay.
Madam Chair, Hogwaller is still one that's, we're waiting for the Water Management District to finish up some deliberations.
You know what? I'm ready for that. Let them wait. Okay. And
Just to
you
give
will be
a
with
heads
us
up,
February 10th.
There's a lot of work. Yes, I will be here February 10th. But there's a lot of projects that'll be coming to you in the next 3 or 4 months.
That's exciting. We're growing. We're moving forward. Anything else for the good of the order?
Madam Chair, I have a couple of comments, if you'll allow me at the
I would allow you
conclusion.
to say anything you want to, sir.
So, Madam Chair, I want to congratulate the Planning Commission on all your hard work moving forward on this comprehensive plan. It's good work. I know it'll be a good product to present to the board, and I'll certainly schedule that meeting. We'll get with Mr. Suggs and the chair to see when would be a good opportunity to have a first available planning, should I say, a workshop with them. So that may take some time putting that together. As far as the notebooks being put together, we have done that, staff has done that, should I say. I can say I hole punched one or two, maybe.
looked at
Under
Nancy
Nancy's direct supervision, I did, and so did Mike. And we are at a juncture right now with Jenny being out of the office now. So it's going to put us back a little while. I can't give you a
We're
time.
not going to get minutes for next week or week after next, and
It's
we're
the minutes,
fine.
it's the notebook itself too. We've got a lot of work that we're doing. So if you'll allow me the opportunity to talk to staff tomorrow to see when.
For the 5,
The 5, the notebooks are done. It would be going back and making the changes that you made tonight.
just a few.
It is, but I want to be able to make sure that we have that time to meet your timeline. So
Keep me posted, that's all I ask.
I would, and I'd also like to thank Mike for all his hard work on this project. He has done a lot. There's been a lot of in his office doing stuff, getting things put together. He's taken a lot of things on his own.
Just listen to me.
And so, Mike, thank you very much for all your hard work, and it clearly shows in this. And Nancy, I know Jenny's not here, but Nancy has done a tremendous amount of work. I can tell you, the Planning Commission, that she does a lot of work for all of us. She's been working extra hours, trying to get things accomplished because our workload has increased. So between her and Jenny, there's been a lot, but Nancy has truly done the lion's share of getting things put together, getting these minutes put together. If you've been to her office recently, there's a note on the door transcribing, So it was one of those things. It didn't say not to come in, but we knew not to truly bother. So she can get things done. Her plate's full, and she's multitasking, and I'm very proud of her, and I do appreciate that. And for Mr. Sammons, too. Mr. Sammons has stepped up and agreed to step up in Mr. Brown's place until we can hire someone. So Mr. Sammons will be helping us manage the workload that's in that office. There's a tremendous amount. He's doing it now as a senior planner on a 4-day-a-week basis, or when he decides to go play golf. So he'll be doing the same thing again for us, and I thank you, John, for that and your commitment to not only this office, but...
Retiring tomorrow, and no, I'm not.
I'm sorry?
Aww.
Retire tomorrow, but no, I'm not.
Yeah, no, he's
How many
not-
times
no.
have you tried to retire?
No more. Several. So we're not letting him, but he's been a great asset to this office. I'm proud of our staff that we have. So we are in the process of hiring a planning manager. So we are looking forward to, securing someone. And we certainly wish Mike well-to-do on his new endeavors. And again, thanks for everything you've done for us. So I just wanted to let the record reflect that there's a lot of hard work being done behind the scenes. And that work, it just wasn't very easy. It was very laborious. So staff really worked hard. And again, I can't be more proud of having a great team. So is there anything else?
Nancy, you gave me the financial statement. Is this something, you meant to give me this, or did you meant to give me the, was this the one you meant to give me, or did you meant to give me the recusal form? The form. Pardon? Right. If you need to recuse yourself from a meeting, you've got to announce it ahead of time, and you've got to give us the form so it can be a part of the record. And I will ask that anybody that recuses themselves either back away to the wall or go down and sit out front and keep their mouth shut unless they want to publicly speak. Also, you all would have gotten in your email a request for contact information from Laura someone. Please make sure you fill it out, send it in. You can print it off, scan it back in and email
Never
it.
got one.
Yeah, you did. I got one.
I got one, but I thought it was for the Better Place Plan thing.
I think you get it for both of them.
All I did was call her. Yeah, I called her also.
You can call, that's fine, whatever you need to do, but just do it.
Nancy made me aware of one thing. I know that the Zoning Board of Adjustment is asking for some to have updated badges. When they go out and make their site visits, they like to have some type of identification. Is that a wish or desire of this planning commission to have something like that?
I have one. Mine expires like 2022.
Okay.
I do have one.
I have
I never went and got mine.
I didn't get one either yet.
So what I can offer is to take a photograph at the next meeting. And then what information do I need Nancy to go along with that? Just their name and? I'll take a photograph of each of you. I promise to be kind and I won't use Photoshop.
Yeah, I think we probably do.
If you
because
want one at the next meeting, Nancy, if you can just make note of that, so I won't forget.
Let's
but-
just do it for everybody that doesn't have one at the next meeting, because some of the sites that we visit are a little dicey.
And I'll send to the Emergency Operations Center the information. They will in turn create the badges, and then they'll provide it to Nancy, and we can provide them to you.
Okey dokey.
Very good. All right, thank you,
Jim,
Madam
thank
Chair.
you again.
Appreciate your
I
leadership.
know
Yes, ma'am.
you've been wearing 19 hats.
Oh, no, ma'am, not that many, I promise.
Okay.
Just got a great staff and good team, and we've got a lot of things happening. So Mike's not kidding you. There's a lot coming. There's a lot coming. There's a lot of people that want new things here in
We're
Putnam
going to earn
County.
our $30 a month, or whatever it is we get now.
Every penny. Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, do I hear anything else for the good of the order? It's 7:29. Good night.